Hello! Quick note before we get into today's episode. If you're listening to this in the first couple of days after it comes out, you've still got time to vote for us in this year's Muppet Twitter Awards. We are up for 7 different awards this year, which is amazing. Thank you for nominating us. And if you'd like to get your votes in, you can do so at voteCommitment.com, or you can find all the info and links pinned at the top of our Twitter page at CommitmentPod or at Commitment.com. There's a link there that just says vote. You can click that. And you have until 8 p.m. Eastern Time on January 12th, 2024 to vote for us. And then you can tune in to watch the award ceremony live on YouTube at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Saturday, January 13th. And again, all that info can be found on Twitter, Threads, Instagram, or commitment.com.
Why are there so many shows starring Muppets? Dozens of movies too. They said they'd watch everyone and they mean it. It's something that they've got to do. So now they pledge you a lifelong commitment. The Muppets, Matthew and Sam.
Welcome to Commitment, the podcast where two friends have vowed to watch all things Muppets. I'm Matthew Gatos.
And I'm Sam Schultz.
And this week, we are discussing the short-lived, often ignored 1985 TV series Little Muppet Monsters. And we are not alone, because we are joined by the co-owner and editor-in-chief of toughpigs.com, Mr. Joe Hennes.
Oh, hello, boys.
Hi, Joe.
Good to see you. Good to hear you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm such a fan of your podcast. And I'm so jazzed to talk about this thing. I don't know what else to call it. It's just a thing.
It's also
trying hard. It's trying real hard.
It's also like 12 things.
Oh, it's so
Yeah.
many things. I'm jazzed to get into this. I do want to say, so when you gave me the option of like what we could talk about, for whatever you're recording in this month, I was really excited to talk about Little Muppet Monsters because I've never seen it. I've never actually sat down and like watched all 3 3/3 of the series. So I'm like, what a great opportunity to do it. And then now that I've done it, to never have to do it again.
Well, you're not supposed to say what you think about it yet.
Oh, you're trying to
even
keep
told
me
people what
from
it
giving
is.
my opinions? It's coming out. It's coming out whether you want it or not.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, this is an interesting piece of somewhat lost media that we're checking out today. But before we get too much into that, for the people out there who maybe don't know who Joe Hennes is, aside from, co-owner and editor-in-chief of toughpigs.com, can you give, maybe a little summary of your history, both with Tough Pigs, but also just Muppet fandom and Muppets in general?
Boy, wait, how much time do we have here? So, I mean, like anyone, I got into the Muppets by being a very young human being who liked Sesame Street during my Sesame Street years, and it just never went away. I just adore everything Muppet related, everything Jim Henson ever touched. And in 2005, Danny Horn, who had created Tough Pigs, he published Muppet Zine before that. I had been a big fan of his work for many years, and he was kind of done with Tough Pigs. And my good friend Ryan Rowe, who I met through the Tough Pigs forum, he and I were living together. We were roommates, and we were like, what if we just did it ourselves? And Danny was like, go nuts. So going from being a Muppet fan to being someone in Muppet fandom, as you guys know, it's an interesting jump because people are suddenly like paying attention to what you're saying, and your opinions aren't just for you, they're for everybody. And we did this Tough Pigs thing. I mean, we started in 2005, which means we probably started really publishing in 2006, 2007. So we've been at this for 20 almost 20 years. No, that's not math. Over 15 years, somewhere in between there. And yeah, and like just being able to grow with the fandom and grow with the franchises and being able to do like going from just doing silly blog posts once in a while to doing podcasts and interviews and, working on projects with the Muppet folks, even, for ourselves or on the very rare occasion on any a official basis. Really, like the highlight being that we get to play with the Muppet fans as well. So like for me being in New York City, I'm at events at the Museum of the Moving Image a lot, and I get to interact with fans in person there. And it's just such a joy to give back to this community that I didn't really know I was a part of until I really became involved with Tough Pigs. That's like the long and short of it in the very broad strokes, but like there's just so much. We've done so much amazing stuff through the site, and it's been a lot of work. Again, as you guys know, it's a lot of work to be a Muppet fan. One of the perks is getting to do stuff like this, where I get to just come on a podcast and talk about Tug and Molly and Boo. Where else can I do that? Nowhere.
Maybe literally nowhere. I think that might be true.
Well, yeah. Can you, I don't know what you can say or talk about. Can you also talk a little bit about some of the more official interactions you've had in the world of the Muppets?
Absolutely. So as many people know, I didn't really talk about it at the time for obvious reasons, but I'm a former employee of Sesame Workshop. And while I was there, I got to work on a lot of really cool projects, mostly on an unofficial basis. Basically, anything that was fan facing, I probably had a very small hand in it. So, for example, if you own the 50th anniversary DVD set, that was completely curated by me. I got to just choose all my favorite bits that went onto that thing. When HBO Max first had their offering of like 200 classic Sesame Street episodes, I also curated that list.
Rest in peace to your great list.
I know, right? But for some reason they kept like I had it on my list, like all the episodes where there was snow on the street, just because I thought it looked cool. And for some reason that's the only thing that stuck around on HBO Max. Like everything else has come and gone. There's very little classic stuff there, but they kept those snow episodes. But anyway, I one of the best things I got to do was I appeared in an episode of Sesame Street. I was a featured extra in the episode about Numericon, their Comic-Con spoof. I had a Muppet on my shoulder, got a nice close-up. And then I also got to write a Sesame Street spoof that went on YouTube. It was a spoof of the movie Birdman with Michael Keaton, but it was with Carol Spinney and Big Bird. So that was a huge joy. And, I worked on some other stuff that didn't see the light of day. I worked on some stuff that, it was such a small amount of work that it's not really worth mentioning here. But it was just cool being a small part of that. Aside from the Sesame Street work, I've gotten to work directly with Disney and with the Henson Company on things like my podcasts. So I did Fraggle Talk, which was promoting the new episodes of Fraggle Rock, Back to the Rock. And I worked directly with the Henson Company on things like, getting permission to use the theme song and the logo, and getting all the guests, because we got the entire cast and producers and writers and stuff like that. Basically, everyone who I asked for actually showed up, which was amazing. And thanks to the good people at the Henson Company. And then we did it again with our Muppets Mayhem Backstage Pass podcast, working with Disney. Same exact relationship. They helped put everything together and gave us permissions to use certain things. And both of those things were an absolute joy. And it's just cool to be in a position where I can write to someone at one of those companies and be like, hey, I have this crazy idea. And they're like, you're going to do it for free? Awesome. We're in.
Great. That all is great, but the most jealous of you I've ever been is that you got to interview Gonger.
I did, and
I love Gonger.
I love Gonger. Gonger is easily the best Sesame Street character introduced in the last, 20 years? More? And
maybe more.
Yeah.
Maybe ever.
Yeah, maybe. I am good friends with Warwick Brownlow Pike, who performs the character, and we shot a video when they were first doing the Monster Foodies stuff. And we had such a good time doing it, and the video went relatively viral for us. And people were like, quote it to me. People still come up to me and they go, "It's got eyes, Joe." And I'm like, yeah, that's from that video we did years ago. And so after that, we were like, well, we got to do another one. So Warwick came back to town because he's from the UK. He came back to New York, and we just set up a camera and we shot this second video. That also did really well. That is maybe one of my favorite things I've ever done, because I think that video where he and I are making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich is one of the funniest things I've ever gotten to work with. Yeah. And he was back in town about a year ago, and we shot a third one. It is almost ready to be released because it took a little long to edit, but we're almost there. We'll probably do it after the holidays. But yes, there's a third Gonger video coming at you soon.
That's very exciting.
Very exciting.
Just to hear him scream your name over and over. I love that. Just be so mad at you.
There is nothing like hearing a Muppet say my name, and it has happened on a handful of occasions. I never expect it because you see the puppeteer and you know these people. And like, I've been on set where like I won't even be paying attention to what's going on. I'll hear Ernie be like, "Hey Joe, ooh, hello," and it's just Peter Linz having a good time, and I'm just like, oh man, if he told my 4-year-old self that Ernie knows my name, I think he would just absolutely lose it. Yeah, no, it's an amazing thing that, you know, again, like having 15 plus years of experience doing all this stuff. It's like, well, we don't get paid, but we get that. That's kind of as good as money, right?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Not as life-sustaining, but soul-sustaining.
Yeah, yes, fair.
Sometimes more impressive to the relatives at Thanksgiving.
That's true.
Yes. That's one of those, like, those 2 truths and a lie things that people do, you know, or like a get to know you game. Yeah, it's like, oh yeah, I got a hug from Mr. Snuffleupagus once, and people are like, bullshit. He's imaginary.
He's not even real.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, well, yeah, like I think you alluded to, we could probably do a full hour on, if not multiple hours, on all of the extremely cool stuff you've gotten to do over the last 15 plus years. But we are here to talk about something more specific today. So, Sam, how about you tell the people what we watched this week?
We watched Little Muppet Monsters. It's September 14th, 1985, a cool, crisp Saturday morning. You pour yourself a big bowl of Ghostbusters cereal, drag your banana chair into the middle of the room, and switch on the TV, surfing between the handful of channels until you spot something different. It's Muppet Babies, right? No, the theme song is a little different. It's longer, more annoying, and it shows actual Muppets, not just cartoon ones. This show seems to be called Muppets, Babies, and Monsters, and it starts off normal enough with an episode of Muppet Babies. But after that's over, a new doo-wop theme song starts up, introducing you to 3 Muppet characters, cute little monsters named Tug, Boo, and Molly. In the introductory episode, we learn that these 3 seem to live in a big apartment building with all the Muppets. Or is it the Muppet Theater? I'm not really sure. And they seem to be little troublemakers. Enough that when we meet them, Scooter is banishing them to the basement for making a big mess. Once locked away, the 3 of them decide to start building stuff out of all the old junk down there, eventually building sort of a junkyard chic sci-fi TV. At first, they just pretend that it works, but the TV is soon struck by lightning, causing it to somehow start broadcasting their basement antics to the world. Tug, Molly, and Boo seize the opportunity to put on a show just like the older Muppets. They enlist the help of a penguin band, Nicky Napoleon and the Emperor Penguins, and some rats to help them, and every week they come up with a theme and perform little skits and acts based on that theme. Fozzie, Gonzo, and Kermit lend a hand too, with little segments of their own. Fozzie has a comedy class similar to Rocky and Bullwinkle's Mr. Know-It-All. Gonzo presents the news of the weird, mostly relying on old film clips, and Kermit writes dreadfully boring and pointless detective stories starring himself, Fozzie, and Miss Piggy, presented as a cartoon segment. Additionally, Boo, the youngest monster, seemingly hand animates entire episodes of a Pigs in Space cartoon every week. And these suckers are long. I don't know how he does it. They're 2-parters. They seem to go on forever. And they also really effectively capture the sort of directionless, terrible script that a child would write. And they sing a song at the end of every episode, too. So you sit in your banana chair, you watch Little Muppet Monsters, because what else are you going to watch? The Smurfs? And next week, you watch it again. This time, the monsters can't decide if they want a space theme or a cowboy theme, so they do both. It's mildly amusing. And the next week, Boo finds a magic book and starts causing mayhem. This one was a little better. And next week, oh, that's weird. This week there were just 2 episodes of Muppet Babies. No little monsters to be seen. And it's the same next week and the week after that. You start to wonder if you imagine the whole thing. And soon, you forget all about Tug, Molly, and Boo. But what you don't know is that several more episodes of their exploits were made that you'll probably never know about. They host a talent show with Gonzo, they babysit Miss Piggy's dog Fufu, they advertise for a mysterious product called Gunko, and you'll never see them do it. You'll just sit there, eating fruity pebbles in blissful ignorance.
That was beautiful.
That's it.
Wow, well done, Sam.
Thank you.
That was great.
Thank
That was
you.
so much better than this series was.
I feel like a couple weeks ago I was like, Sam, I really miss when you really set the scene
put
of
me
what
on
we were
blast.
watching, and then you were like, let me cook.
I
Like,
was
here I
"Fuck
go.
you, man."
Well, there are some things to talk about before we talk about specifically these episodes. First, elsewhere in the world of the Muppets around this time. These notes, by the way, always come from Jim's journal on Jim's Red Book site. In August of 1985, Jim was finishing up Labyrinth, so he wrote from August 20th to the 26th that Lisa, his daughter, was visiting him in London. All of his kids kind of came and visited throughout the time he was making Labyrinth. Probably, to hang out with Dad, but also to meet David Bowie, probably. And this, I love these like little, trinkets of knowledge Jim's Red Book drops in every so often. And this one says, Lisa's visit culminated with a weekend spent riding a hot air balloon over the French countryside with Jim and 9 others, which to me sounds like too many
That's
people
too-
for a balloon.
Many people in one hot air balloon.
On August 31st, Jim wrote Big Rap Party on Set, 1,000 people. Speaking of too many people. And this was held on a soundstage at Elstree Studios outside London. And this was like a friends and family. Everyone gets to invite everyone, bring everyone
That's a
who worked
lot
on
of
Labyrinth.
people, though.
Yeah. And they had the actual final shooting day was about a week later on September 6th. And to mark that, Jim hosted a smaller party back at his house. So that was the cool kids party.
Yeah.
And then on September 17th, 1985, Jim wrote Toronto, 30th anniversary of the Muppets. So this was after Kermit the Frog turned 30 years old. Everyone was like, hey, we should probably celebrate this in some way. So they headed up to Toronto to tape The Muppets, a celebration of 30 years, which would air on CBS on January 21st, 1986. And we'll be watching and discussing it in early March, I think.
I'm so glad that you had a reason to talk about the 30th anniversary special here, because I think everyone knows, if you've ever seen it, that there's a direct reference to Little Muppet Monsters in that special, where Big Bird's like there's all this kid stuff that we're doing, like Muppet Babies and Little Muppet Monsters, and like Tug, Molly, and Boo are there in the audience, and like as a kid,
they don't even know.
yeah,
They
like
don't know.
they obviously filmed it when they're like, this show's either just about to come out or like it just aired or whatever it was, and as a kid, like watching the 30th anniversary special, like thinking, oh my God, there's another show out there that I've never seen. And like, it must be great. I just assumed, because like the other stuff that they're talking about, at least like I was kind of aware of like when they talk about the Sam and Friends stuff. But other than that, it's like, yeah, it's Sesame and Muppet Show and Fraggle Rock. And oh yeah, also this other show that you don't get to see because DVDs don't exist yet. So for years, I assumed that this was like a hidden classic. We're just waiting until the powers that be give it to us on an old VHS tape. I did not know that it was already canceled at this point, right? By the time that it aired.
Yeah, so the sad part is that it was airing as they were recording that special, but by the time it aired, it had been canceled like 6 months earlier. So, or 3 months earlier, whatever it was. So, like, it was one of those things where it came and went so fast that they didn't even really have time to promote it.
If they had waited like 2 weeks, they could have just said, we won't shoot that scene.
Yeah, let's cut that line for Big Bird. He doesn't need to mention that one.
So do you think that when the show got canceled, and I'm picturing like Jim and Jerry Jewell and Michael Frith and that whole group sitting around being like, should we like edit what Big Bird says? Is it possible to go in? And do you think they were just like, you know what? Screw them. Let's leave it in. It'll be a big mystery for the next 30 years.
Are they there too? The Little Muppet Monsters are there also.
They
aren't
are, yeah. They're in the crowd scene in the. I mean, you'll talk about this in a couple months, but like they're within the scene, especially like there's a close up of them when they're all. I think when they're singing Rainbow Connection and everyone's swaying. There's like a big close up of the three of them together.
Okay. Well, when we're watching it, I'll use my editor brain and be like, how could they have cut this out? And see if Carol just squishes it together too much, and they're like, shoot.
Right.
And he's too busy to re-record, eh? Okay.
Well, it's not like anyone's gonna tape it. Do they even have VCRs that could tape at this point? Like they probably just assume like people will be like, "What was that?" It doesn't matter. Look, Fozzie Bear. Look how fun he is. Pay attention to that instead.
You could have. It would have cost like $1,000, but you could have had a VCR in your home taping it at that point.
Right.
Which, thankfully some people have.
Somebody must have, yeah.
So, yeah. Yeah, we should say what we are watching, we mentioned we are watching some unaired things. These have been brought to archive.org by Garrett Gilchrist, a person who has, spent years archiving not only Muppet things, but many things on the internet. If you look at his archive.org profile, you'll see so many things that you would have assumed were lost forever. So very appreciative to his efforts.
Thanks, Garrett.
To bringing this to us. And yeah, this is, as I mentioned earlier, an often ignored thing, as Joe hinted about. Like, you watch that celebration of 30 years and you're like, what is this thing? And I looked up, this doesn't even get mentioned in Brian J. Jones's biography of Jim Henson. Huh. There's not a mention of this show in that book. And so getting into a bit of what this show is and why it didn't work, it was developed because Muppet Babies was so popular, and they were like, okay, how can another half hour of Henson possibly be a bad idea? So Jim and Michael Frith, who's the executive producer of Muppet Babies and a bunch of other things, decided to do a show where they introduced young Muppet monsters, and they wanted to include some of the classic Muppets. And so they came up with this idea of an hour of Saturday morning programming under the banner of Jim Henson's Muppet Babies and Monsters. And they wanted to encourage specifically hands-on creativity because camcorders were becoming wildly popular around this time. And Jim had a premonition that was maybe 15, 20 years ahead of its time.
Yeah, they're YouTubing.
Yes, because he said of the camcorder technology, I think it's going to change the whole way kids think about television. Before, it's always been something that kids were subject to or watched, but now they can participate in it. They can be a part of that. And we're going to see some results of this in about 10 years when these kids grow up and start doing things in the medium.
Oh, no.
So
he was too right.
So I'm trying to Google this very quickly just so that I look like I know this off the top of my head, but of course I don't.
We do that all the time.
So have you guys talked at all about handmade video? Have you gotten there yet? Oh, actually, no. This is much later.
Yeah,
sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's much later. Yeah. I have glimpsed some of the handmade video concept, which is truly ahead of its time, but we have not discussed it.
I never even heard of it.
So it's basically what you're saying of like Jim being ahead of his time with this. Like, I think everyone someday will have a camera, then they will just share their own content. And he gave a camera to these two comedians, Dana Gould and Jordan Brady, and was basically just like, go nuts, guys. And I've never actually seen it. It's supposedly very experimental, and I don't know, I have a feeling it's not that good. And there's obviously no Muppets in it. But yeah, like you said, like it's just Jim kind of being like, here's what I think people are going to be doing in 20 years. So let's do it now.
Yeah, there's a video intro of him talking about the concept that is out there that you can watch. And there's some more like premonition type of lines in there where he is talking about everyone will have camcorders and be using it for all this stuff. And it's like, you were right. You were just like, you had no idea how right you were going to be.
Right.
Because in the age of now smartphones and YouTube, it's like, oh yeah, no, everyone can host a live stream immediately for 1,000 people from their pocket.
Yeah. It's one of those things where like, whenever someone asks, what do you think Jim would be doing today? And it's like, of course I would have no idea because he would be working on, what the technology will be in 30 years, not what we have today. It's like, it's completely unpredictable. He would be completely misunderstood because he's working on ideas that we're just not ready for yet as a society.
Yeah, it's like looking back at a man who his whole reason he got into puppetry was because he wanted to be on TV. And that was so hard to do back then that this was his only route that he saw to do it. The idea of him seeing Twitch and being like, wait a minute, anyone can have a show where they can go live and talk to a bunch of people and entertain them at any time. This is amazing.
He'd be gaming. He'd be playing Fortnite. We'd have Kermit the Frog skin in Fortnite. Come on.
Except for the fact that like this premonition turned into Little Muppet Monsters, so maybe he wasn't all that right.
Well, you know what? A lot of stuff on YouTube's really bad. Okay, Joe. So
Jim was so ahead of its time. He knew that people were going to want to make bad content, and he's like, "Let me just do this early."
Exactly.
Yeah, it's very meta. This was purposefully not great. And speaking of the not great, there are a handful of very good reasons that this maybe didn't turn out as polished as the Muppet Show or even Muppet Babies. When you think of a Muppet Show that featuring, Kermit, Gonzo, Fozzie, Scooter, you'd think there was maybe going to be something there that could sustain it past 3 episodes. Well, thanks to both Muppet Wiki and a website called cartoonresearch.com, I've pulled some facts together of sort of what happened to this show. And so according to storyboard artist Scott Shaw, Henson Associates and CBS agreed that the concept had never been properly thought out and just wasn't up to the high standards they had. And it was eventually it was Jim's idea to fully pull the show from the Saturday morning lineup. This also did coincide with Marvel Animation had trouble meeting their deadlines for, they're doing Muppet Babies, they're doing the Private Eye segments, they're doing the Pigs in Space segments, they're doing a lot. And because of that, the ultimate death nail here is that 4th week Sam alluded to, where all of a sudden there's 2 Muppet Babies back to back. That was a Band-Aid solution where Marvel was running behind and they were like, well, what if we just try showing 2 Muppet Babies back to back since we have those in the can? The ratings were noticeably higher that week. And
Brutal.
CBS went, what if we just kept doing that and maybe forgot this other show that we were doing? So I think that's, ultimately what happened there. It also, that website mentions that because Jim was working on Labyrinth and other projects in Europe, the team didn't get as much attention as he was giving to other shows like Fraggle Rock and Muppet Babies, and CBS stepped in and took more control over this show than they were on Muppet Babies, which created attention and had Marvel Animation being like the middleman between the 2 teams of creatives here. And Scott Shaw, the storyboard artist again, likened the experience of turning out Muppet Babies at the same time as Little Muppet Monsters as like working on 5 animated shows at once. And the supervising director, Bob Richardson, said that they'd have 7 or 8 edit bays running at the same time, 7 days a week. And he would joke that if Muppet Babies and Little Muppet Monsters, if that hour was successful, that his best investment would be in a nice plot at a local cemetery. And the last little thing I did learn from cartoonresearch.com that I thought was interesting, that doesn't necessarily allude to the going away of the show, but was kind of a wild thing. This show did not have the typical writing team that was behind other Muppet projects, which I think is a little evident in some cases. But at some point in the process, that team did include future ABC 2015 The Muppets showrunner Bill Prady and his Big Bang Theory co-creator, Chuck Lorre.
They worked on this show?
A little bit.
Okay.
Chuck Lorre has an official credit on Muppet Wiki as like script supervisor, not script supervisor, but like overseer.
Sure.
And Bill Prady's name does not show up on the credits, but apparently there was a bunch of an old writer passed away and he left behind a bunch of notes that people were able to dig through and see to get a lot of this information from. But apparently those 2, when they were working on it, came up with sketch ideas that did eventually end up in the show. But one of the ones that Chuck Lorre penned was that there was going to be Muppet Monster Television, which would have been a talk show spoof with adult Muppet Monsters and guest hosted by Floyd and Janice.
Like that was going to become part of this show?
In some of the pitching, yeah, they were going to have, I think maybe another segment was going to be Muppet Monster Television, maybe capitalizing on MTV at the time, doing an MMTV. And there was also a pitch for a Narnia-like portal to a monster town. Don't know what that would have been, but yeah, it seems like the biggest problem with this, which again, I think feels evident in watching it, is that they didn't have a lot of time to plan things out, to think things through. It was very rushed. And I think they also had 20 ideas for a show that they tried to cram into one show.
What's interesting to me here is like the overall concept of like, what if, this was like a Muppet Show Junior, and there's like these other Muppets and they're down in the basement of what might be the Muppet Theater, as Sam said earlier, that like, oh yeah, they're doing like their own version of like sketches and stuff. Like that seems to make sense to me. It's not exactly what they ended up with, but the result actually feels so much more like the Jim Henson Hour, the Muppet television segments of the Jim Henson Hour, where they're just like, I don't know, here's another thing. Look at that screen. Okay, now here's another thing. Look at that screen. And it feels very I mean, look, I love the Jim Henson Hour for what it is, but like you said about this show, it's 20 ideas kind of wrapped into one, and both of these felt very unfocused. So the fact that like they kind of already tried it here and we're like, maybe the problem was, too much animation, forget the animation. Or maybe the problem was, that like we've got all these kiddie characters and we don't want them to be kiddie characters. We want them to be adult Muppets like on the Muppet Show. And not the fact that like maybe what we need is one concept and just stick to that one idea and do that very well.
Yeah, I was going to say that it like the idea, like you said, feels pretty strong. But the idea when you say it, there's so many caveats to the idea where it's like, yeah, is this the Muppet Theater or is it a mansion where all the Muppets live upstairs?
It seems like because the penguins are breaking in at the beginning.
Yep.
It does seem like it must be the Muppet Theater, or at least they know Kermit lives there. It also has like those speaker pipes that I think the Muppet Theater has something like that too. So it's like, why are all the Muppets there? How did this happen? Why did they adopt 3 precocious children together?
Yeah, it definitely seems like, when we see the other characters in the building, like it's like Kermit is at a typewriter. It seems like that would be like his library or whatever. Or like we get a few shots, in the promos especially of, characters sitting on a couch, like we see them from behind as they're watching the show on a TV screen. We never see the theater. We never hear like, oh, it sure sounds like they're doing a big musical number up there. They don't do anything like that. But a part of me is like, I can kind of wrap my brain around like, okay, they all live in a brownstone together. Like they did that in, Muppets from Space. That's in their big house. Like, sure.
Yeah.
But Scooter is like still working. Like he's on the clock here,
Yeah.
So like that feels weird.
He's still taking care of Fufu. He's blocking people in the basement.
Yeah.
It's also an interesting intro to characters when it's like Scooter's like, you are prisoners in the basement.
Yes.
now.
Scooter's a dick in this,
down
by the
there.
way. Like, I mean, I know we'll get to that.
Not nice at all.
Yeah. Like he's finally found someone who's lower on the totem pole than him, and he is taking advantage.
Well, and that's confusing too, because like you do have a little bit of that. Okay, these are just kids, but they refer to all the grown-ups as Uncle Fozzie, Uncle Gonzo, Uncle Kermit.
Hate that. Hate
But
it.
then they also refer to them as Professor Fozzie and Professor Gonzo, because in these taped segments that Fozzie and Gonzo are doing, it almost feels like a Tiny Toons sort of
Exactly,
thing,
yeah.
where the Muppets are training the younger Muppets, but it's like that doesn't carry through to anything else.
Right.
When you read about the concept for the show, it says that they're supposed to be broadcasting TV, but that it only broadcasts upstairs. And like, we don't
okay, I didn't get that.
get that at all in the show. They don't hint at that like only the Muppets are able to see their show. And if that's the case, if these kids are in the basement messing around making a TV show, why are Gonzo and Fozzie on the TV show?
Yeah, and they knew like the minute that because like in the first episode they're on the TV show, so it's like they already knew that their kids were going to invent a magical TV, and they had these segments prepared.
I mean, the Kermit one makes sense
Yeah,
because Kermit is he's obviously just like working on his own fanfic of himself as a detective, and and they're like, I don't know, Uncle Kermit. Again, hate it. Uncle Kermit, like, why don't you just like read us your fanfic? And that's part of the show. And he's like, well, I already have it. It's already done. So sure. What else am I going to do with it? But yeah, but Fozzie and Gonzo appearing as themselves on screen. And like Gonzo's like traveling the world in this one too. So like he obviously put a lot of money into like the travel budget. Doesn't make any sense.
No one else would pick up his show but the babies,
Although that also feels very Gonzo-ish to be like, yeah, I'll do it. I'll do anything. It's high art.
But you also have Fozzie and Gonzo recording their intros to their segments in the same corner of the same room with the props swapped out. So it also, like the set in the background is essentially, it's the same corner. And for Gonzo, they just put like a green screen there for him to show silent film footage. And then for Fozzie, they show the little chicken TV behind some curtains. And I'm like, oh, that is very telling to me about how much you cared about making this show, is that like, you didn't even build them different sets for their segments.
Well, and you had to say to the old performers, you had to be like, we're going to make this as easy for you as possible.
I bet they were like,
you're going to stand in this corner for 45 seconds and that's it.
I bet they were like, we have Frank Oz for 30 minutes. Like, we don't have time.
Yeah.
We barely have time to swap out the one background piece. It's like, here's the Fozzie puppet. Here's some lines. I don't know, man. Do what you got to do. And then Frank's got a lunch at noon, so he's got to split.
There is nothing in this entire thing we watched more telling about that fact than in episode 3, The Great Boudini.
Yes.
Fozzie gets to do another chicken crossing the road segment, and there is a moment in that where Fozzie at the end goes to pull the curtain closed on the chicken TV screen. The curtain doesn't close all the way, and Fozzie just goes, "Who cares?" and goes to walk away. And then the curtain continues to close on its own, and he turns to the camera and says, "Well, that's funnier than ever." So, but to me, this felt like it might as well be Frank Oz standing there in front of us in this moment. That is not Fozzie. That is Frank being like, "What the fuck is going on, guys? This is ridiculous."
Frank Oz is never funnier than when he gets into that "who cares" territory. And like, you see it a lot with Piggy, especially once he gets into the 90s on like live TV with like the Martha Stewart bit and stuff like that. And just like once he's decided that he's better than this production, gold. What are you gonna tell him? No? Come on.
That's kind of the thing about the stupid Fozzie that we see in Muppet Babies and these cartoons that I don't really buy.
Yeah.
Because I don't think Fozzie's stupid. I think Fozzie is like brutally realistic and also, I guess, a little bit of like a troublemaker, and you don't really see that at all. And especially when it comes to Kermit, like he's Kermit's foil, but in the cartoons he's just like a dingus.
He's
And I hate
so
that.
dumb in these cartoons. And I mean, this is something that I really want to on Tough Pigs for us to do some sort of research project about Fozzie's level of stupidity, because there's stuff that like Frank worked on. Like the thing we always point to is the John Denver and the Muppets Rocky Mountain Holiday special, where Fozzie's like so stupid he thinks an active beehive or wasp's nest is a football. And it's just like, come on, dude.
Right.
Like, you're better than this. But then there are times like this where like Fozzie is so aware of what's happening that, you know, he can make references to like, oh, it's magic. And, you know, like, like this is funnier than anything. Like he can be smart. He can be smart and aloof at the same time. He can be smart and doesn't understand how comedy works at the same time. But dumb Fozzie does not. It was like a weird trend, and they're still like having trouble shaking that off his character to today.
Yeah, I guess it's actually almost that he's smart about everything except he doesn't understand comedy, and he's smart enough to also know that he doesn't understand comedy, and that's why he's so sad. That's why he's such a sad character, because like the one thing he can't figure out is the only thing he wants to do.
Oh man. That's tragic the way you put that, but it's accurate.
Well, it's interesting too, because I feel like something happens with another Frank character in Animal, where like we see Animal be a little bit more complex, like at the same time being very simple, where it's like we see him as a genuine threat a lot of times in the early stuff on the Muppet Show, and then now he's sort of treated just like, yeah, he's a little bit weird.
Now he's baby.
Yeah,
Animal's
now
baby now.
Now they just have to take care of him like a baby.
Yeah, I wrote an article about this on Tough Pigs a year or two ago, just talking about how Animal was a force of nature, and then somehow over the years he turned into caveman baby. And that's what he kind of talks like a caveman. He needs to be taken care of, like you say, you know, but he's not going to like bite your face off, you know, like he's not,
No one could be.
he's not
scared
the
of
guy
Animal.
who, Frank Oz said eats glass, man, you know?
Well, I feel like that's one of the few things, like, while Muppet Babies gets Baby Fozzie, I think, quite wrong, they get Baby Animal great, because Baby Animal is the most terrifying.
He's a nuisance. He's horrible. He's so destructive.
He eats a couch in, like, the first episode.
He eats a couch in every episode.
So I think we've all showed our hands a little bit here, but overall, feelings on this show as a concept, things you were maybe confused by or just hated, like overall feelings.
God, where to start? And I hate that there's a Muppet Project from the Jim era that I have to be like, "Hoo boy, okay, let's break this thing wide open." I mean, from the get-go, there's so many issues with the premise that I don't understand, and if I don't understand it as a 40-something-year-old, how would you expect like a child Saturday morning who like just woke up and, you know, shoving, like you say, shoving Cocoa Pebbles in their in their face. It's like they don't get like,
Yeah.
what does it mean that they're putting on a show? What is it? What is like? There's like, is it just to the family? Is it just to the audience? Or like to the whole world?
Where's the camera? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, like
where's the camera? They don't show the damn camera one time.
we're looking into what seems like it's like maybe a washing machine, but I've always kind of seen as like they're in the basement. Is it the boiler? I don't know. That seems unsafe.
Oh no.
There's like a latch on it too, like a boiler might have. Like I don't know.
That's true.
And the participation of the other characters, the weird segues from like seeing an established Muppet character performed by their actual performer to seeing a poorly animated version of them voiced by someone else. That does not work. Like
So
we have
weird.
Kermit the Frog being like, "Hey, what if I was a detective?" And then we see this weird humanoid Kermit voiced by Frank Welker. We're like, "We just saw Jim. We know he's there." Like why didn't you just put a microphone in front of him? It's so weird.
Yeah, make them record 10 extra lines. They're not really like the most in-depth cartoons ever.
Really? So yeah, like everything about this is, it's just like I say this about a lot of bad projects where it's like it just needs like a couple more drafts. Like it just needed like a good dramaturge to come in and be like, let's think about why they're there. Let's think about like the history of the Muppet Theater and like how we can really tie that into what the Little Muppet Monsters are doing. Oh my god, I have so much to say about this. So like there's also like the characters of Tug and Molly and Boo, and I feel like Tug, which is the one that's performed by Richard Hunt, has the most personality, probably because he's performed by Richard Hunt. And Richard just was having so much fun with this character. I don't really know anything about any of them except for the fact that they are kids, which is not a personality. That's an age. And I guess Boo is like the little kid, and Molly is
he's little.
the female
He's
one.
little Junior Gorg. He's Junior Gorg, basically, is what Tug was.
I guess. Yeah. I mean, I guess he's a little bit more rambunctious than the other ones. He's a little bit older. You get that feeling. But like they don't have real personalities. These aren't characters that you're going to be like, "Oh, I love that famous line that they said," or that cool decision that they made that no other Muppet character would ever make. They're kind of just placeholders, and that's no fun.
I think just the fact that her name is Molly. That's such a boring name. That's the most boring Muppet name of all time.
Yeah. And it sucks because like the other performers, it's David Rudman and Camille Benora, who are also great. Like they should be having fun with these characters, and they should be giving them so much personality that we can't stand it. But instead, they're just like, I don't know, let's do a thing. And then they do a thing. It's that generic.
Here's what I think. I think I can fix her. I know how to. I think this makes sense as a concept. I think the problem with the whole show was that the animation is so fucking boring. It's like, it's not even bad because it looks nice. Maybe it looks too nice, and that's why it took too long to do it. But I don't care about pigs in space. I've never cared about pigs in space in my entire life. And I don't care about Kermit being a detective. That's a new
Why is
concept
he a
to me that
detective? Why is
and
he
he's also
not
not detecting
a journalist?
anything.
Because he's a detective in one episode of The Muppet Show. Because they were like, hey, remember the Liza Minnelli episode?
Oh,
Let's
yeah,
just do
right.
that.
That's true.
Like, just carry on the characters from the Great Muppet Caper. Just have that be the story he's writing, and I could at least buy in a little bit more.
But I do think the concept of Muppets being basically like horror hosts, like Svengoolie or something, of Saturday morning, that could be cool. So you could have these interstitials in between shows. So then when they're throwing to a cartoon, they're like, let's see what Inspector Gadget is up to this week. Then you come back, you have a little bit more of their storyline. Then they're like, all right, let's watch Care Bears now, or whatever was on. I don't know what was on. That I think would be okay, because I did think, especially as we got deeper into it, the puppet stuff actually started getting kind of good. And I liked, I genuinely liked the Gunko episode, and I thought the Gunko song was hilarious.
Oh, I'm so glad you
That
brought
was
that
like-
up. I watched it 4 times in a row. I thought it was hysterical. It was the only thing I genuinely laughed at in this entire viewing experience.
Yeah, and it was like, even for a Muppet project, like it was a pretty good laugh, I thought.
Yeah.
Like it was very clever and made sense for the concept of them putting on a show. I just think I think there's something so fun about the idea, and this is what I felt like they maybe thought too. They have this show and they know it's going to be on they think it's going to be on forever, and they think that they can play around with it as much as they want to and build this little world in the basement up a lot. And they just didn't get a chance to do that. But I do feel like they're starting to figure out the puppet stuff in a fun way. The animation stuff, it was never going to work, no matter how hard they tried. So they needed to do something else completely different.
I would love to know like the production schedule of this show, because there was 3 episodes produced. We have access to the puppet segments of 3 more, but there was like 15 episodes total, which I assume the puppet stuff was filmed for, if not just written. But like you said, the unfinished Gunko episode was the best of the bunch. But like, was that later on when they figured it out a little bit more? Like, did they film the first episode first? Yeah, no clue.
Yeah, there's definitely some stuff in there that I felt like it almost made me sad watching the unaired episodes, where I was like, oh, they were kind of figuring some of this out. And like those episodes are better than the episodes that did air. And so maybe there was a chance they could turn the ship around and like make something that works here, because to me, like those later ones work okay. Obviously, the cartoons still would have interrupted and still would have thrown off.
Been really bad.
Yeah. But I think like a lot of this show, like you're saying about the production schedule, I think a lot of it to me felt improvised in a bad way. Like it felt like, I don't think it was improvised, but the scenes that I think like were so rough, it felt like first draft, like we have to get something out, just go do this. And I don't know if it's necessarily fixable, but I think there's elements where, like, I don't know if you guys ever watched kids songs growing up, but like to me, I'm like, oh, that's a show that they made that was the whole concept is that it's for kids, by kids, and starring kids. And so like basically these kids take over a TV studio and they start producing like music videos and sketches and stuff. But it feels almost real. Like you almost believe that like, oh, those kids are actually making a TV show, and you see the whole production thing. And I'm like, that's kind of what I wanted from this, was I wanted to feel like these kids are actually trying to make a TV show and not just like accidentally showing up on a weird TV that they invented in 2 seconds.
That to me highlights another one of my big problems, is that they shouldn't have invented a TV. They should have invented a camera, and it should have started with the screen going like, and then they're like, hey, we invented here we are, we got our hands on a camera. It makes no sense. And this even feels like something that Jim would have been like, that doesn't make any sense. Because this whole thing is like the TV is the puppet stage. It makes no sense that we are seeing them see the TV, and then we're seeing the show that they're supposed to be making, and then the TV.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Because we're the audience. And like when we see their quote unquote backstage stuff when they're in the basement, that should have been them talking directly to us. Like, hey, everybody out there, like somehow we got this magic camera to work, and you can see us at home.
And they do talk directly to us sometimes, but the stuff happening in, like at the beginning of a few episodes, they're like, oh, hey, what's up? But then the magic TV concept, I suppose, as a way of pumping in the other Muppets makes sense, and like introducing the cartoons. But they needed to have just invented like a magical production studio, which I guess is more boring than a magical TV. But
they immediately invent a TV and then instantly go, oh, this means we can make our own TV show.
That's not how TVs work, kid.
Nope. Yeah, I don't
know.
know.
That's the opposite of how they work, actually.
Well, and the inconsistency of like how that even works, like you say. So there's them basically walking off camera, and then you'll see one of them inside the TV. So like they obviously have access to whatever the camera would be. There's the, hey, let's cut to a correspondent. Here's Fozzie Bear. And then there's also the Pigs in Space segment, which is Boo has drawn, like poorly drawn these pictures in his sketchbook, and
it's like a flip book,
they make it look like it's a flip book, and then we see the animated thing. The real us see the animated segment. So like, is it happening in their imagination? How are they getting that concept into this fully animated thing on screen?
I think the TV is just really, really magic. Because at the beginning, they're like, Tug, use your imagination. And then he tries to, and then the TV does stuff. And then they're like, wow, this TV's magic. So I think I think it's all real. That's my take on it.
It needs another draft. One more draft, guys. Come on.
Yeah.
Well, and the original plan, I was reading this about, I think on the same cartoon research website, the original plan was to have them interact with the animations. Like Boo was going to talk to the Pigs in Space cast and be like, hey, wait there, we got to go to commercial. And Kermit was going to talk to the characters inside of his Private Eye cartoon and like rewrite stuff to try and change it. And all
That
of
sounds
that,
so hard.
Especially with
exactly
two
why
different
they didn't do
Kermit
it, Sam.
voices talking to each other.
yeah,
Like Jim
But
being like, Kermit,
to
you
me,
don't
the
sound
concept-
right. Try it like this.
yeah. To me, the concept at least sounds better. That like it would lend a little bit more credence to why these animation segments are here if we're having a little bit of interaction. But like, yeah, I don't know. I'm curious what you think. Is this show missing a laugh track? Would that help at all? Because on the Muppet Show, I think there are elements that are saved by a laugh track and by like the audience being sort of watching this show along with us. Whereas there is points in this where I'm just like, ooh, that fell flat. And there's nothing even to try and convince me it was funny.
I think they needed to go as DIY as possible and not have a laugh track. Like remember Shrimpenstein, that thing I showed you,
Yeah.
Shrimpenstein? I think they just should have relied entirely on a half hour of puppets doing wacky stuff. And I guess like that seems so much easier to me than what they ended up doing, which is ultimately was their undoing. But I think just like making it basically what Muppet TV became. And maybe that's where they got the idea, as I love to say, for that part of Jim Henson Hour. Just making it that and talking directly to the kids and being like, oh, we're going to put on a little show. The songs were actually kind of fine, especially compared to some of the Muppet Baby songs, which are some of the most annoying songs I've ever heard in my life. Like they were at least different styles and stuff. So I don't know. There was something there. It almost approached Fraggle Rocky to me in the puppet segments. But I think adding a laugh track and that kind of stuff would be a step in, maybe for the cartoons, so you can be like, I literally don't know what's supposed to be funny about these cartoons.
I mean,
I do need some help.
These types of kid shows, I don't think they generally have laugh tracks, and I think there's a reason. Like, I think I'm trying to remember things like, you know, Pee-wee's Playhouse didn't have one. I don't think the Weird Al Show had one.
Yeah.
This whatever kid show that you were just talking about with the kids, for kids by kids, like they didn't have a audible reads. Yeah, I just don't know if that would have worked, and it would have. I don't know. I definitely would have made this show last the test of time. And it would have made it feel so different from Muppet Babies, which it was supposed to be back to back with. I don't think that was the problem. Maybe if it was funnier,
Oh, no,
then
I'm
we
not
would be
saying that would
laughing.
have saved everything.
Yeah.
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 You know, there's so many things that I think they could have tried, you know, to change the format. Like we could sit here and make a dozen different, you know, arguments for,
Yeah.
you know, making it all puppets, making it, you know, like if it was just the storyline in the basements versus like maybe it should have been just the characters introducing bits instead of trying to include too much plot backstage. You know, I don't know what would have worked and what wouldn't have, but it definitely seems like, I know we've said this 3 times already, the idea that there are 20 ideas going on and they just can't commit, and it makes it feel like they're just throwing a lot of crap against the wall and hoping that one of those ideas is good enough that it'll be the focus of when we retool it for season 2, you know?
I think it's also kind of important to keep in mind that a lot of this was kind of even before I think Saturday morning cartoons got good,
Right.
in quotes, because it was still stuff like, it was like the I guess the Gummy Bears was around, that was good, but it was like the Snorks, it was reruns of the Super Friends, it was reruns of Scooby-Doo, a lot of Scooby-Doo, and I think like the Pee-wee's Playhouse comes next year and does kind of like change, it elevates the form, and I bet Jim watched Pee-wee's Playhouse and said, ah, shit, we were really close. Because actually, compared to some other, it's not that bad, really, compared to Saturday morning cartoons. I think the animated parts are bad and boring compared to Saturday morning cartoons, but I think the puppet parts kind of at least fit in, if not were a little bit better than something like a Scooby-Doo rerun. Like, I'd rather watch new puppets than a Scooby-Doo rerun.
Well, yeah, getting into the 20 ideas and hoping one sticks, let's go through these segments that they introduce in this show that aren't the puppets. Most of these are the things that we see in the first 3 episodes, but were not there in the other 3 bits we watched because they weren't finished. First up, we have what I think is, they wanted to make a Pigs in Space show and couldn't commit to the idea, so they were just like, what if we just shove it into that other show? It's Pigs in Space, the animated series here, and we get 2 animated segments per episode. Notably, I wanted to point out some voices here. We have Link, voiced by Bob Bergen, who will also do a bunch of voices on the Fraggle Rock animated series, but He also does Bunsen's voice in these segments here. And these days, he's most well known for being the current voice of Porky Pig and Tweety Bird. We have Strange Pork here, voiced by Greg Berg, who is also Baby Fozzie and Baby Scooter on the Muppet Babies, but also Adult Fozzie on the Private Eye segments. And then we have a whole new person. We have Hal Rail, the only time working with the Muppets, voicing Piggy in these animated segments. He is known for Transformers. He is Snarl and Shrapnel on the old Transformers. But for some reason here, they didn't go with Laurie O'Brien, who was the voice of Piggy on Muppet Babies. Maybe they were like, yeah, old Piggy's got to be a dude.
So, yeah, I thought that was really strange and not. It stood out to me, and I did like. Every other voice actor is the same. It seemed kind of rude, but I bet it is probably like she just has to sound older. Maybe the other actor had a problem sounding older.
Or like, like that Piggy voice is so specific sometimes that like, and like the baby Piggy voice that Laurie O'Brien did is just so, I don't know how to describe it. It's like high and twee and, it's like maybe her impression of Frank Oz's Miss Piggy is not so good, and they were like, let's get this other dude.
But yeah, those like the Pigs in Space segment to me is something that doesn't really land, feels like a bad 80s Saturday morning cartoon on its own that probably would have lasted 3 episodes if they tried to make it on its own.
Feels like a bad 60s Saturday morning cartoon, kind of like the Partridge Family cartoon where they went to space or whatever,
Yeah, I think the only thing it gives us that is decent is Milo Sock Drawer, the villain, who is this ridiculous looking monster in a Darth Vader costume. And that's kind of the only part of those that I somewhat enjoyed.
His name was funny?
Yeah, is that supposed to be a
he
pun?
Was okay, but
it sounds like it's a pun, but I'm like, it doesn't sound like Darth Vader. Milo.
And when they're like, he's a space wizard, and then he looked like Darth Vader, I was like, I guess technically Darth Vader's a space wizard, but that is not how I would describe him first.
I feel like there's so much potential in this idea of a Pigs in Space cartoon. Sam, I don't know if you were saying that you dislike Pigs in Space as a concept altogether, but I love Pigs in Space. And I've always thought that there should be more with this. I mean, there was almost a movie, Muppet movie, that was supposedly based around this idea. And, the idea of also saying like, well, we're going to do like a big outer space epic or homage. And it's just really hard and expensive to do that with puppets. So like, yeah, we'll just animate it. Who cares? If they had either committed to, we're going to make this as crazy as we can, or going back the other way and make it so like specifically 1960s animation and like almost spoofing that genre, I think this could have been an absolute gem. And I kind of think that the people at Disney should consider it today. I think there's enough love for Pigs in Space and obviously so much love for Star Trek and Star Wars that they could really kind of go nuts spoofing that stuff, that it could potentially do well. But I didn't feel like, well, obviously it's not funny. This version is not funny. And they weren't really doing all that much that they couldn't have just done on the show. Like I remember thinking there's the one episode where they are transported to the alien planet, and they come out and like their arms and legs are in the wrong place. And it's like, well, sure, that's something that would be hard to do with puppets, but actually not that hard. Like you just take the puppet's arm off, you replace it with a foot, and like that, oh no, they've been swapped around.
It'd be a great gag.
It'd be a great gag. Yeah. Or like they get transformed into
like,
frogs. It's like, yeah, they did that all the time on Pigs in Space, where they just swap out the puppet and you just have the voice coming out of the wrong one.
Just a big plume of smoke, and then you got a different guy.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think you're onto something with a lot of these ideas. I don't think all of them, but I do think some of these ideas could stand on their own if they leaned into giving the resources and the time to making that thing its own thing and a good. Because like you look at the 2016 YouTube series that they did with Pigs in Space, where they did some shorts, and those are pretty good. Like they stand on their own as like little, there's like little homages in there to Star Trek and Star Wars stuff. I think maybe even Alien. And with those, I'm like, yeah, I could see that being its full, like a full concept if given the time. And I think so many of these segments just suffer from not having any time or resources thrown at them.
I'm realizing as I'm talking about this, there's something to be said for some of the best Muppet content is loose parody of something else, like a genre parody. This is a genre parody of. It's not a sci-fi. Pigs in Space is not just sci-fi. It is specifically a parody of, or a send up of this like 60s era sci-fi film. And I think a lot of Muppet Show segments are the same. I mean, the concept of the Muppet Show is a send up of that era's variety show, and they really are kind of like poking fun at it. And it's something that's kind of missing from modern Muppet stuff, that they're not consistently doing the same kind of genre parody and send up. And I wonder if another option for how Little Muppet Monsters could have been saved, if it was just a straight up parody of the Muppet Show. It's like, we are doing the Muppet Show, but we're children and we can't just do the Muppet Show. So we're going to do what our version would look like. And that could have been really fun, potentially, if it was well written and good, which is not a promise. But what if it was well written and good? Maybe that would have been cool.
Yeah, I like that idea.
It was fun to see the old guys show back up. Like, I think it would have been fine if it had just been Scooter, probably, like Scooter and Foo-Foo, just because you have such easy access to
Richard Hunt, yeah,
to
because he's already
Richard,
there.
Yeah, he's already there. You might as well get Scooter in there. You might as well have Janice come down. Maybe. I don't know who. I can't remember anybody else who plays off the top of my head.
Yeah, Sweetums.
Yeah,
Shove
Junior Gord
Sweetums
show
down
up
there
for some reason.
Right.
Yeah, Sweetums could be great. He's a big Muppet monster. He teaches the little guys
Sweetums
what
would be
to do.
actually really good.
He'd make
I don't know if
sense.
he'd fit.
Maybe that's where he just lives down there.
Oh.
One episode, they just like pull a box aside and he's just like, hey, what's
Oh,
up?
I love that
This is
idea.
my house.
Have you been down here the whole time? Yeah.
I have, yeah. I think the Pigs in Space thing, now I'm just fully imagining Pigs in Space as like Roger Ramjet, Rocky and Bullwinkle style, like comically serialized. I think
Yeah.
would be really cool.
Yeah.
And it's just like this storyline went on for 10 years and it's completely lost the plot. But that's like part of the fun. Is just like, this week this happens. I think it was so weird when they were like, when Boo's like, stay tuned for part 2, and it's like, aha, that's just what they do on Pigs in Space.
Yep.
And then part 2 actually happens. I was like, no, I don't want part 2.
I did not
We don't
think for
need
a
that.
second we were actually getting a part 2 that first time
Yeah,
he said
I
that.
was so disappointed when
And
we
there's
did.
like the conceit that because he's the one making it, he's like, stay tuned for part 2. Like, once I write it, and then it's like, he obviously wrote it in like the 2 minutes that they were out on commercial, and it shows.
the commercial. Yeah. Sure.
Well, I think for it, in the best ways, in the worst ways, this reminds me of watching Muppets Now, in the way that like they're like, here's a bunch of ideas we have. Maybe we don't have time to fully flesh them out as much as we want to. The wraparound is going to be more thrown together than maybe we want it to be as well, because COVID hit and we didn't get to do our full plans for the show. But like the idea of Muppets Now and this are maybe like, Muppets Now might be the closest thing modern Muppets have done to a Little Muppet Monsters.
I haven't watched Muppets Now yet. I'm saving it. But I bet they'll probably take it off if it's not already taken off. Is it still on there?
It's still on there for now.
Okay.
Yeah, for now. Everything's for now.
But getting into some of the other segments here, we have the Kermit the Frog Private Eye, which we've talked about a bit. Personally, I think Pigs in
Trash,
Space...
unsalvageable. You can't save the Kermit the Frog thing.
No, I think Pigs in Space works better than the
Yeah.
Kermit the Frog Private Eye, personally. Mostly because Kermit himself is even pitching this as like, look at this shitty thing I wrote.
These suck. It's like the Uncle Traveling Matt thing, where at the end of all of them, all the other Fraggles are like, this guy's a real moron. We hate him. And at the end of all these, Kermit's like, this story sucked. Sorry you had to watch it.
Yeah, he apologizes every time for how bad the thing he just showed us was. And I'm like, that's your fault.
Then don't show us anymore.
He was
I don't
planning
wanna
on
see it.
doing
Poor
anything
Jim
with
Henson
it.
under there.
He's obviously just like, these kids keep bugging me to do something for their made-up show, so sure, I'll do the thing that wasn't good
Yeah.
enough for the Muppet Show, which is already in universe
Yeah.
a terrible show.
At the end of one of them, I think he's like, I'm just going to throw this one in the trash. You should
Yeah.
have done it before we came up here, Kermit.
I mean, and it's telling that like the only good thing to come out of these at all was the meme of Kermit frantically typing on the typewriter.
Yeah, that's it. That's even from one of the unaired episodes. That just like, but he does it in one of the other episodes too, where he starts like violently stabbing at the keyboard.
I was
like, the
looking
puppetry,
for it.
Very
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, he looks insane for like a third of a second. He's just like, here we go, on the typewriter. Amazing.
It is like someone said like, oh, and then can he type? And Jim's like, I don't know. Let's see. And it's like, this is first take, best take. And it's like, that kind of looks crazy. And it's like, we don't have time or money to do it again. So that's how Kermit types on his typewriter.
So, Frank and I have a
been
lunch
between
to get
jobs
to.
for
I gotta
too
go.
long.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of Frank, notably missing from the Animal animated shorts is the voice of Frank Oz. Here we have Hal Rail doing the voice of Animal as well. And this is, do you ever see those goofy shorts Disney put out of how to do things?
Weren't they funny?
Now
What if we
imagine
made
it
one that's
not funny. And with Animal, where he lives in like a normal house and is kind of a normal dude, but still talks like a caveman.
Caveman baby.
He has a nice house, actually. I wish I lived in Animal's house.
I didn't know that being a drummer for a variety show paid so well.
It's all the residuals from the reruns.
Yeah, the one where
He's getting a nice check.
he's playing baseball and they tell him to go home, so he goes to his home, which is how we see his house. I was fully expecting his parents to be there, and that was like, this is his parents' house. But that one, I think, is the most unhinged because he just keeps misunderstanding everything about making batter and home plate, and he uses an actual animal bat as a bat.
He just reaches outside his window and he just was like, oh, I know where a bat is.
During the day.
It's just outside my window.
Why was there a bat? The sun is out.
Daytime.
I have so many questions.
Maybe it lives in the eaves of his beautiful home. I don't know.
But we get a slow motion animal swinging this actual bat at a glass pitcher that has been thrown in their direction. And I'm like, what could possibly be about to happen right now? Is
I
this
don't really understand what did happen.
what happens is that bat grabs the vase and holds it so that nothing bad does happen. But it does
Okay.
just look like Animal threw a glass pitcher and then went to hit it with an animal, and there would have just been bloodshed and glass everywhere.
This, again, like Pigs in Space, it has potential to do like Animal getting into like these, goofy, like, comedy bits, and like you don't need dialogue because Animal doesn't speak regular words. Like the idea of, we have another character who's doing the narration to talk about what Animal's doing and that he's getting it all wrong. Like this all could have been funny, but because it's so obviously cribbed from the Goofy cartoons, you're never going to be as funny as the Goofy cartoons unless you try to do something different. And they weren't interested in that. If anything, they were making it so much tamer for the Saturday morning crowd.
Yeah.
So they either needed to like really go off the rails with it and make it bonkers weird, or they needed to make it like a straight up parody, and it's neither of those things. So it just feels like nothing.
And it's also, I think, getting into this now with the next one, which is Muppet Labs, seeing these characters as full body adult man looking proportions weirds me out.
Beaker's head proportion was so incorrect.
Beaker has the body of a standard 30-year-old beefy dude.
I did not like that.
And
at
then
all.
the head of a beaker.
Yeah.
Like, to me, Animal's a bit better because he's got the very skinny, lanky limbs, and it's a bit
Yeah.
like if you took the puppet
He
and
looks
made
just
it
like Animal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But taking Beaker and making him so beefy for
He
some
looked like
reason.
he could really kick your ass.
Yeah, he could rip Bunsen in two.
Is this the Beaker from Very Merry Muppet Christmas, in the world in which Kermit was never born, where he's got like the big arms?
He becomes a bouncer or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. This might be his origin
He's on
story.
his way.
Something
that,
about
yeah.
like his hands like still have the four fingers, but they move more human-like, and some like he's human from the neck down, pretty much. And so like having the weird cartoon Beaker head on top of this man-like body really creeped
It's
me
scary.
out. I like almost couldn't pay attention
It's
to what was
scary.
happening in the Muppet Labs cartoon because of that.
The weirdest thing to me about this was, like, you've been mentioning all these voice actors that have been appearing in these animated segments, but Beaker's voiced by Richard Hunt in these.
Yeah, he's the only one who was
Yeah.
like, I'm not too busy doing two other characters on this show. Call me in.
It does seem like Richard was really game to do a lot of stuff like this, which is fun. I would probably be that way too. I'd be like, oh yeah, I want to go around and do as much stuff as I can.
I have to assume that this was maybe one of those times in which Jim was like, look, I can't be, the showrunner. I can't even be like a huge presence on every show. And so like, I'm going to kind of like let some of the other performers take the lead. This is a big thing they did for Fraggle Rock when he's like, I can't be there. So like Jerry Nelson, Richard Hunt, Dave Goles, Steve Whitmire, this is your show. I trust you guys, go nuts. I wonder if this is one of those times where he was like, Richard, this is your thing. And so Richard was maybe much more creatively hands-on and was like, well, I'm here. Why would we hire, some Muppet Babies actor to do the voice of Beaker? Like, I'll just get in the booth and do it myself.
The whole thing is just so bizarre and does feel so hands-off from some of the, the Jerry Jewell, Jim Henson touch that a lot of these other things get, that it feels like it was, like, not on purpose, but it feels like it was set up to fail in so many ways along the way. Mm-hmm. I think that one of the weirdest things to me is, like, obviously we have some involvement from these other puppeteers. The weirdest one to me, though, I think is Jerry Nelson, who gets one line as Floyd in the entire show. And that's the only thing he does in this entire show. And normally, when you see puppeteers not take part in something, it's because they've opted out for the entire thing. Like, okay, you're not going to see any Frank in Fraggle Rock. He's not there. It's like, for this, it's like Jerry Nelson's not a part of Little Muppet Monsters, except for one line.
I felt this way with the Jim Henson Hour, specifically with Jerry Nelson, where he's there such a tiny little amount. That's, I'm trying to think, I think we might see Floyd for like a hot second in that entire series, but then it's like, well, then we'll still throw him like Beard and we'll give him the on-screen cameo as Mr. Harry Stapleton. And like, he's got a few background characters. So it's like, well, why didn't you bring in some of your other familiar characters to play with the rest of the Muppet gang?
You're just standing around and back there, obviously, at some point.
Yeah, exactly. So. I don't know. A lot of questions about that. But talking about like some of the guys, the people who are close to Jim, not being present for this one, the one person who was really involved with the show was Michael Frith. And, I don't know what his exact role was beyond development and character designs and things like that. But he feels like the person who's like, look, you helped make Fraggle Rock what it is. You helped make Muppet Babies the hit that it is. What was the disconnect from what Michael Frith does to the creation of this show that was missing? Because I feel like he would have known a little bit better to make this a better show, and maybe he just wasn't around, or maybe
because they also brought in Terry Maskell, who directed a lot of Fraggle Rock, to direct this show. So you feel like they were definitely trying to throw some of the Fraggle Rock magic at it to trying to get it to work, but I think it was missing the Jerry Jewell touch with those other two.
Yeah.
Well, getting into another segment here with one of the, the classic performers here. We got Dave Goles as Gonzo doing Gonzo's freaky facts and oddball achievements in what is maybe the most inconsequential segment of any of the shows, which is, saying something. Unfortunately, Dave is used very weirdly here, where Gonzo just shows us some clips from some silent films, and that's about it.
And just shows up out of nowhere. I don't know. There's like no lead up to him appearing in the first place, I feel like. And at least with Fozzie, they're like, he's going to teach us how to be funny. Gonzo's just like, I immediately heard somehow you have a TV show. Let me into this TV show.
So there's something about Gonzo that I usually dislike, but for some reason I liked it in this, where when Gonzo does something that's so weird that it's funny because it's weird, but not so random that it feels like it was a written joke. Like, like whenever they talk about like Gonzo puts tapioca in his pants, I'm like, I feel like that's it's so easy to say something random, but it's not a joke. But in these, it's something that he says, but it's like, so in one of the segments, he's got a banana peel on his head, and another one, he's got a shoe on his head. He has like a globe that's also kind of a cube. And like, there's something so weird about him being like, this is just how I see the world. This is a normal day to me. Weird Gonzo. I don't know. It was something I enjoyed about it because he wasn't really pointing it out. It was just a part of his performance. And then Gonzo obviously knows enough about the costs of making television, because he's like, I'm only going to show you things that are available for free from the public domain.
Yeah, what a lucky coincidence that those are his favorite weird things.
I kind of liked this too. I feel like maybe Gonzo could be the host of the Saturday morning block of television. Like, he's just so charismatic. And this is, I agree with you, Joe, that sometimes, especially I feel like lately, Gonzo's like, it's not weird because Gonzo's like the weird one, but he's also the only one who wears like a sweater vest and dresses so normal compared to everybody else, especially back in like the late Muppet Show days.
Yeah.
But then this one, it really is like, oh, I can see how you're like, you're a weird guy. Even though you're dressed normal, you hang out with Gonzo for a second, you're like, you're a weird guy. And I don't want to talk to you anymore, but I appreciate how strange you are. And I was getting those Gonzo, like that vibe from Gonzo this time in a way that I feel like it's like a very effective Gonzo hidden away in this little show that nobody ever got to see.
Yeah, and you mentioned the comparison between this and the Fozzie Bear segment, where Fozzie's here to teach us something, but Gonzo's just here because he heard you had a TV show. And I wonder if it would have been better or different in some way if they had posited it in the way of like, Gonzo's here to teach us about art, because that's what Gonzo is about. Like he is a performance artist. He's like, don't worry, guys, you're making TV. Like, I'm an expert here. I'm going to show you something that will really help you with your artistic endeavor. And then here's a guy driving a mini car with a magnet, or like here's what are the other ones? Like there was like a weird flying car. Well, whatever it was, it's like this is the important information you need to know, and have them react to it like, thanks, I guess. That was not super helpful, but we'll see you next week.
I think exactly like similar to the cartoons, some interaction would have been nice. Them, like, what we're missing is those Muppet Show moments where someone comes backstage and people go, wow, that was
Kermit's
nuts.
like, great job, guys.
Yeah. And so I think like if they would have sort of been live interacting with Fozzie or Gonzo and saying like, what are we supposed to learn from that? Why would you waste our time? We're trying to make a TV show here. Like, getting some interaction between them as opposed to just like, and now here's this, and then coming back and be like, and now here's not that. Like, which is most apparent when you watch the unaired segments where you see them throwing to things and coming back from things. You realize how there is no context given or allowed because they don't know what's about to happen.
Gonzo as an art teacher is a fascinating concept to me, though. I like that. Maybe they put a little bit of actual educational content in this thing.
Can you imagine?
I think the problem with Gonzo is that it's like art. He can't ever be avant-garde enough to be like weirder than actual art. So maybe he just needs to show actual art. Or like they can't show him. I don't know. There's just like he says he's a performance artist, but he just describes a lot of the stuff he does. So maybe if he's showing real performance art that he thinks is good, then you could be like, oh yeah, I understand Gonzo's point of view.
The best example of that we see in the unaired Gonzo's talent hunt, where he says he's going to show us a breakdancing gargoyle on stilts who's in a 500-gallon vat of chocolate pudding. And we actually throw to a French gargoyle who is refusing to breakdance because he's too classy for that. And this episode, to me, I really liked the Gonzo's Talent Hunt episode because this is the closest thing to a Muppet Show that they do.
Yeah. I was shocked that they went to the gargoyle. I was just like, the kids will be watching it and we won't see it, just like every Muppet Show episode. And they didn't get in any pudding, or whatever it was supposed to be. But there was a freaking gargoyle, and he was kind of scary too.
I mean, I was mostly shocked that Gonzo was so involved in the plot of that one. Not that we only see him like twice, very briefly, but they're talking about Gonzo, and like the chickens are there, and it's like it just felt like Gonzo was a part of the show and not just someone that we catch a quick glimpse of and think, God, I wish I was watching Gonzo right now.
The fact that they picked episodes that didn't have these big guest stars in them is kind of crazy to me, that they didn't at least try to be like, well, let's put on the one with Gonzo. People love Gonzo. They'll see Gonzo, and not let's put on the one with the space cowboy thing. So not a good episode to try to lead off with.
Well, and something else that we see in one of those unaired episodes that we don't get to see actually realized is a segment called Frog Scouts, which was going to be another cartoon segment with, the traditional Frog Scouts we've seen, but Gonzo was going to be their scout leader.
Why?
Great question.
He's not a frog.
I mean, I guess it would be funnier than if it was Mrs. Appleby or whoever the Frog Scout leader is in the Muppet Show.
We don't know that she's not hilarious, okay?
Well, she was performed by, if I recall, Kathy Mullen, who would have, I guess, yeah, she's one of the puppeteers on this show. She would have been around.
She worked on the show as a writer too, I believe. So she was there.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Bring her back. Mrs. Appleby, it's time for her star turn. I really liked and also in the Gonzo one, I thought that the storyline with the old lady who had like divorced her dance partner husband
It's so good.
and the giant carrot was so funny. And then at the end they do the dance and it's like, this is great. This is like kind of approaching Muppet Show territory.
Yes, absolutely.
Maybe even paying off on the promise of a premise better than the Muppet Show occasionally did.
The gag of her being like, oh, my dance partner isn't here, but I'm going to do the dance anyway. The payoff wasn't great, but the idea was great. But then were you guys disappointed when they're like, oh, and then there's this 7-foot tall talking carrot, and you're like, oh, it's going to be the 7-foot tall talking carrot from the Gilda Radner episode, and then it's just like a slightly larger than normal Muppet.
Some other
it's just
carrot.
a different giant carrot in the world of the Muppets.
He's definitely like 4 feet.
I was hopeful, especially when like the first gag is that he's just doing tap dancing and you don't see him. He's off screen. So I'm like, okay, maybe we'll never see this carrot. And in the next scene, they actually do bring him in. And then you're kind of disappointed where it's like, maybe they should have just left him off screen the whole time.
Yeah.
I thought he was all right. I kind of liked him. I liked that she was dancing with his roots, you know? I thought that was cute.
If they hadn't said 7 feet, it was the 7 feet that I really have a problem with. Like, that's a lot. 7 feet is huge.
That's a good
These are
point.
tiny little guys. And that
He walks through the door comfortably.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
But yeah, getting into like, you know, we're not going to talk through every episode here. But I do want to touch on any standout moments from any of the episodes, aired or unaired, for you guys that, you know, you see that glimmer of hope of like, if the whole show was like this, maybe it could have been something better.
I know we already talked about it, but I want to double down on the Gunko episode and the Gunko song. So my wife and I have this joke whenever we notice that there's a product that's being advertised with such a generic slogan that you can't tell what it is. Like the one that I always think about is J.C. Penney doing it right. And it's like, what is it? It doesn't tell you anything. They're doing what right? So if you didn't know what J.C. Penney was. And that Gunko song where the world is waking up to Gunko, he sings, fly to the top, ahead of the rest, go for it all, grab for the best. I was on the floor. And then like you have all these cutaways to the rats who are down in the basement, and they're like one of them's like taking a shower under a leaky hose, and one of them's like doing push-ups, and they're saying like it's available in regular or lemon scented. It's void where prohibited. Licensed drivers only. And like
batteries not included.
And then like at the end of the song, the moose pops up and goes, "Share it with someone you love." I thought that was
so funny,
absolutely hysterical. One of the funniest, like that's as funny as anything that would be on the Muppet Show, in my opinion. So
I agree totally.
If they had played with the formula of, well, this is what happens on normal TV shows. They have sponsors, so we should have a sponsor.
Exactly.
Like if they were spoofing TV as a whole, I would have loved to have seen more of that. Another thing that I appreciated was just this idea of like building out this basement. And again, I wish they had established it was in the basement of the Muppet Theater and not the basement of this random townhouse, because, you know, this idea that we're keeping rats, penguins, and chickens down there, and this random moose who shows up once in a while, and you know, anyone can show up. We've got all these old props. We've got all this weird stuff. Like there's a box that you could open and anything can be inside. I feel like that lends itself so much to like, where do they get all their stuff for the Muppet Show? And I think that was a premise that really could have been like broadened out a lot to create potential for storytelling and world building. And again, like doing that, well, if they're doing the Muppet Show upstairs, we're going to do our own thing down here. It would have tied it all together a little bit more nicely.
Yeah, get some Easter eggs in there too. They could have had old props from old skits and stuff.
Yeah. They did have, I'm sure you guys noticed there was like posters in the background of like the Muppet movies and some Muppet promotional stuff. So like, it's cool to see that. Like the Muppets are actual movie stars in this universe. But yeah, to have like genuine, like, we literally pulled this out of the workshop because it was in one episode of the Muppet Show to, you know, have as a set piece. And for people like us to be like, hey, isn't that from the Mac Davis episode? That would have been rad.
Yeah, that was one of the concepts I read about, was that was sort of the intention, was that they were going to be going through the old stuff that they're like, uncles who were using on the Muppet Show.
Hate it.
And
Hate
so
it.
I think the idea was there, and this was their version of it. I think like when you see them pulling out random hats and wigs or whatever from boxes, I think they're supposed to be sort of like doing that, but it's definitely not actual stuff from the Muppet Show, and it doesn't have any ties to anything we've seen before. So it is, it just feels like a little bit of like, it feels like a props segment of an improv show where they're just like, and now a box of props, go do something interesting with it. I didn't love the whole Foo Fooey episode when the kids are forced to watch Foo. But I did love a couple things in that one. Tug, one, hates Foo, would kill Foo if everyone else would allow Tug to kill Foo.
Similar to Floyd. Floyd also was like, when he
Right.
had to babysit Foo was like, well, I could just kill this dog and then I won't have to do
Right,
this.
like Floyd locked Foo in a drawer, and everyone was like,
Yeah.
what the heck? Dude, you can't do that. In this, Foo gets shoved into a tuba, also shoved into a box at one point, and Tug is hoping no one finds Foo because after he shoved her in a tuba, they ask him point blank, what'd you do with Foo? And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. It's like, I definitely now think you murdered that dog. But it ends up that when Foo gets blown out of the tuba, they crash into some like arts and crafts supplies. There's a bunch of
I
paint.
thought they were cupcakes or something. I didn't know
It's
what
very
the hell
confusing.
They never
But
say
this
it.
leads
Like you
to-
can tell it's paint, but they're never
No.
like, you fell into my paint drawer. It's just like, oh, now we're covered in stuff.
They were. Yeah.
But we do get a delightful punk song because now they're all covered in paint.
That was awesome, by
after
the
that.
way.
And then once again,
That song was great.
Yeah.
the song is great.
Uh-huh.
But once again, at the end of the song, for some reason, Mickey Mouse shows up and says, somebody called. And I don't understand. They like wanted Mickey Mouse to be the star of this show. And
I kind of liked it by the end.
But like,
I was warming up to it.
why is his catchphrase somebody called? They're
No,
not
because
like,
Because
they.
whenever they mention a moose, then he shows up. That's what it is, right?
So they said something.
I didn't even
I'm
notice
looking
them
for.
mentioning Moose.
Yeah, they said something that rhymed with moose. I'm looking for the line in my notes. Yeah, because the
Oh.
song is "Pooch on the Loose," and when they say "Pooch on the Loose,"
Okay.
he thinks they said moose. It's not clear. I agree with you.
Jeez.
But that was
It's
his.
so
yeah.
it's so tenuous. Yeah.
I think the other time he shows up, they have said the word moose or something like that. And then when he shows up at the end of the Gunko commercial, I was like, he's part of it.
I love it.
like him.
I
He's
love
all
it.
right. He can stay around.
So,
Yeah.
one thing that I like about the Foo episode is this idea that like, oh, anyone from the Muppet Show could potentially come downstairs into the basement, and it doesn't have to be Scooter.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a character that you know and love. Like Kermit is not going to come down. Just like he's not coming downstairs. Stop asking him. But like. Yeah, Foo shows up. Like, we could have seen Baskerville. We could have seen Timmy Monster. We could have seen, like, anyone that, like, from the background or anyone, like, that maybe doesn't need a consistent voice actor like Foo. Like, Steve Whitmire's not on set. He can't do Foo for you. But, whoever it is that's doing it for this puppet, it's like, yep, it's fine. So I like that idea that it ties into the universe without it being just a passing cameo. And it's kind of a shame they only did it the one time for these 6 episodes that we've seen.
Kind of sounds like we sort of liked parts of Little Muppet Monsters to me. Kind of
Parts
sounds
2,
like it was
plural.
pretty close to something good.
Maybe 2.
It sounds like we liked the things that never aired.
Yeah, that's true. And that's so sad because my favorite thing in the whole thing was definitely by a long shot the Gunko theme song. That whole episode wasn't my favorite one, even though it was kind of funny that they were all had a totally different idea of what Gunko was. My favorite one was the talent show episode, I think. But the Gunko thing is too good to be hidden away behind, like to have never been aired. The Gunko thing was so funny. I kind of liked the Emperor Penguin, Nikki Napoleon and the Emperor Penguins. I thought that was kind of just like, I thought it was fun that they were there down there. I thought it was fun that they were kind of slowly over the weeks like accumulating this thing, and it would have been fun to see after a season what it looked like.
I
And
mean,
if they had a
Also,
plan for
the origins of the Muppet Vision 3D Penguin Orchestra.
Oh yeah, that too.
Little Muppet Monsters has its, its hand a little bit in a bunch of weird Muppet things that
Yeah.
no one would ever
like
know.
An unprecedented look at the rats and the penguins and what they're doing in their day to day. Maybe not unprecedented for the rats as much, but just that they were there running around was fun. But yeah, it was fun to watch the later ones, and it was very fun to watch them without the cartoons. Once the cartoons were omitted from the like rough cut versions we were watching, then I was like, okay, this is okay.
That makes me wonder if we edit the cartoons out of the first 3 episodes, will they be better?
Maybe we got something on our hands then.
Yeah, I think it both like revealed that there was some strong stuff in there, but at times also revealed how thin some of the plots were when you only get 8 minutes of it and you're like, oh, well, okay, there wasn't much meat on those bones, huh? Like they were really hoping the cartoons would fill the time.
There's no way what we got could have been turned into a half an hour. It would have had to be interstitials in something.
Right.
Just making the interstitials be really boring Muppet cartoons was not the way to do it.
Yeah, and I think for me, like, there's a couple interesting things. I think, like, the Great Boudini episode has, like, actual magic introduced into this show where, like, they had the magic TV, but this is like, oh, Boo finds a magic book that can turn his brother into a sandwich, which I will say, the sandwich is a great-looking puppet. Like Tug Sandwich, I love that puppet.
Except
not that
for,
interesting of a character or what they do with it.
Except for the fact that you could see Richard Hunt's entire arm. Did you notice this? Like when he talks, like
there was many times you
Yeah.
would see his wrist when it popped up. Yeah. But the idea of introducing why, like, some of these things were definitely filmed out of order because, like, they have actual magic in this, and the next episode, Tug is trying to put on a magic show and is bad at it. And I'm like, you just had actual real magic in your show. And at one point, the walrus is, like, playing with the band, but then later on, he shows up having delivered the Gunko, and then they're like, hey, you want to join the band? And it's like, oh, we saw him playing in one of the musical numbers previously, so whatever. Not important to the overall, structure of the show. But yeah, I think the weirdest thing about the Boudini episode, too, for me, was at the end, they were suddenly like, wait, should we be like Fraggle Rock and try to introduce a lesson?
Yeah, that was so, I hated that.
Because the book, and once everything is solved and the magic is reversed and Tug and Molly swap back to their original, characters, the book basically tries to tell Boo, if you want to be good at something, it takes a lot of work.
Yeah,
and I'm like,
shut up, book. It's Saturday morning.
Also, that was nowhere in this episode was the idea of hard work, spend your time, be patient. Nowhere was that present throughout this entire episode, and they just shoehorn it in the very end.
And the fact that, like, well, first of all, the whole episode is about Boo submitting to the dark arts. Like, very quickly, he's just like, magic, eh? And things go wrong. And he's like, no, but I'm feeling more powerful. I think I'll just keep this book. And second of all, during that message of, well, if you want to do magic, you got to put in the work. That's not how magic works, by the way. You can't just practice magic and then be good at magic. Magic does not exist. You can practice things and be better at them, for sure. But it's like, oh, did you want to turn your friend into a sandwich? Well, you just got to work really hard at it over the course of the next few years.
It's going to take you a long
time.
time
You'll
to
get there
figure out.
eventually, buddy. Keep dreaming.
It's also not even how magic works for him, because like he instantly is able to do some stuff.
That's true.
And it seems like, chooses not to reverse it. Like, it seems like he is making the choice to be like, no. I like how powerful I am right now. This is pretty good. I will not attempt to change you back.
It's also jarring that was an episode where they chose to give Boo any kind of characterization.
Just for a second. Not too much. A little characterization as a treat,
I mean, speaking of characterization, the last thing I wanted to note from one of these episodes is in the very first episode, we get the Kermit Private Eye cartoon. Again, one of the low points of the episode. But we do see the surprising return of Banana Nose Maldonado.
Yeah, what?
A one-off Muppet who played the villain in a Bear on Patrol sketch in the James Coburn episode in season 5. Who now, they build so much lore into this one little segment where, like, he is leading this gang of supervillains with an elephant sidekick and all this stuff. And I'm like, okay, clearly they had an idea for a full show there, too, that they didn't want to pursue. But, never would have expected, after seeing a one-off Banana Nose Maldonado, that he would become a supervillain.
Even weirder that's a one-off because it seems like, oh, he'll be the bad guy in every episode. So I kept waiting for another guy with a banana nose to show up.
And bananas keep showing up.
Yes, they certainly do. Very strange, but never him.
I just love the fact that a character like Banana Nose Maldonado, like when you try to look him up on the Muppet Wiki, you have to choose, do you want the page for Banana Nose Maldonado or Banana Nose Maldonado and then in parentheses animated? Like of all characters, good God. It just
maybe one of the few characters who like has the shortest Muppet Wiki page, but has two of them.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
No, I agree with you. I think it would have been hysterical if he was recurring and if you had these banana nose characters. Because in this one, he's disguised as a polar bear, and so it seems random at first that there's this polar bear that has a banana for a nose, and then it's revealed, blah blah blah. But like, if every episode ended with like, oh, we caught the bad guy, and it's this puppy dog. It's this, whatever, this random bird or I don't know, but it's got a banana for a nose. And like, oh, how did we not know this was Banana Nose Maldonado again? That'd be
great.
Relatively funny.
That would be hilarious. Yeah.
But he's not the only bad guy because there's one episode where they're chasing the Giggler, who's like this practical joker, and then spoilers, in the end, it turns out it was Fozzie. Fozzie is the bad guy, and he's tagging along with Kermit to try to find him.
Kermit says one of the best lines of the whole show where he goes, and like a good friend, I turned him in.
Yeah.
He had his friend arrested. But also because he knew that, that the cops would be driven crazy by Fozzie's bad jokes, and he was only in jail for 2 minutes.
Well, and I think the Private Eye stories, the fact that they are written by Kermit says a lot, because the middle one is they're trying to hunt down King Kong, essentially. A gorilla escaped from the zoo, and it's a giant gorilla. And they're like, okay, how do we get King Kong? Oh, he's attracted to blondes. Let's use Miss Piggy as bait on the top of the Empire State Building. So the gorilla shows up, grabs Piggy, and Kermit goes, shit, I don't know what to do now. So Fozzie, what if we just leave?
He didn't have an ending to his plan. His plan worked, and he still was like, I don't know.
Well, does he say like,
oh, this seems dangerous?
He's like, well, we just had to find him. We're not going to bring him in. Found him. Bye.
So there was one other thing I sent along to Joe and Sam to watch that we haven't discussed yet, which is a clip from All-Star Rockin' Wrestling Saturday Spectacular. We did not watch the full thing of this because it's like an hour long, but boy, did I skim it and check out.
I want to watch it. It looks great.
So the concept behind this show is it's a fictional show that was supposed to be hosted by Hervé Villachez from Fantasy Island. But the show is hijacked by Rowdy Roddy Piper. But the show is set up to show clips from CBS's 1985 Saturday morning lineup. And he hosts the whole show. Rowdy Roddy Piper hosts the entire hour as his heel wrestling character, antagonizing all of the guests, getting in fights with them, yelling at the audience.
Booing him.
Yes. Yeah. At the beginning of this, there's a crowd outside the theater chanting, Hervé, Hervé. They are so mad. And Hervé Villachez shows up. He vows revenge on Rowdy Roddy Piper, which he gets at the end when Cyndi Lauper shows up with Hervé Villachez and brings him in to stop Rowdy Roddy Piper. At one point, Rowdy Roddy Piper and Captain Lou Albano perform King Lear.
Wow. Wow, this sounds
like a
great.
fever dream.
Oh, I think it was a cocaine dream. Because other guests include Patti LaBelle, New Edition, who for some random reason go, and here's a clip from the Wuzzles. We see Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who Kareem Abdul-Jabbar gets to randomly show a clip from the Berenstain Bears cartoon. Hulk Hogan shows up to show off the only reason the show could possibly exist, a clip from Hulk Hogan's Rockin' Wrestling. And they also show sneak peeks of the Dungeons & Dragons cartoon. But what we watched was a very brief segment where Pee Wee Herman is brought out to talk with Rowdy Roddy Piper. And he takes his socks off, he turns them into sock puppets, and starts drawing on them with markers.
That's where mankind got the idea.
And he's just annoying Rowdy Roddy Piper. And then Rowdy Roddy Piper goes, hey, you like cartoonies? You like cartoonies, right? How about that new show? And Pee Wee Herman has to go, yes, I brought a clip from Jim Henson's Little Muppet Babies and Monsters.
Excuse me, what he actually does is he screams, here's a clip from Jim Henson's Little Muppet Monsters!
It's the whole show is like that. I promise you.
Wow.
From what I saw, the energy of the entire show is wild. That like Roddy White Pepper is put out there as the villain of the entire show, and
He's got a big throne. That's great.
and he's enjoying
just
it
like-
so much.
Yeah.
But there is an extra little special thing in this little preview we see of the show that we did not get to see in Little Muppet Monsters, which is Kermit and Gonzo sitting down to watch the show, and Piggy is there, performed by Frank Oz, poking her head in through the door. It's weird.
She says, Kermit, I thought you said you'd spend some time with me. And then Kermit's like, I will after the show's over. And it's like the saddest little moment I've ever seen in a Muppet project, I think. It made me so sad.
It was genuinely like we shouldn't have this peek into their real life of like the way that Kermit kind of treats
No,
Piggy
not at
like
all.
shit. And her being like, I just want a little attention.
Yeah.
He's like, I have a friend over. We are watching cartoons. Like not in front of Gonzo, Piggy. Come on. And she's like just with her little snout just like kind of barely poking through the door. I'm just like, oh, okay, I'll just go away now. I'll go back. Okay, bye. You know?
It's like, oh, you mean your friend who probably also lives here and the show
lives
putting on
next
by our
door.
adopted nephews in the basement? Oh, you can't do this another time?
And to show that as one of the clips on this Saturday morning like cavalcade, just like here's your mom and dad who don't love each other anymore just for a few seconds. What?
You have to watch Tug, Molly, and Boo because Kermit and Piggy are going through some shit right now,
Yeah.
and they don't want to act together.
Oh my God.
I was so disappointed we didn't get to see that storyline. Whatever that was, I was so sad.
What if this whole thing was like we had one of those I don't know, end of season 1 of The Good Place moments that just kind of put the whole show into context, where we find out that the kids have been put in the basement because mom and dad, Kermit and Piggy, are fighting upstairs. And they're just like,
Yeah.
not in front of the kids. Fine, send them to the basement. Tell them they're putting on their own TV show. They'll be down there for
get
hours.
those kids in the basement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
While the lawyers come and deal with our divorce.
Brutal.
The season finale is Tug, Molly, and Boo being separated because they want us
Oh,
both
no.
custody.
Jeez.
No.
Oh, it's so sad. But the whole thing about this Roddy Piper show, like the way you described it and how bonkers that is, it makes me wish that there were a few elements of that in Little Muppet Monsters. You know, like some of that, like,
Yeah.
we're just getting some of our crazy random ass celebrity friends here to just introduce another thing. And then we're going to do King Lear.
Yeah.
And then we're going to wrestle. And then there's going to be people outside who are chanting Baskerville, Baskerville, Baskerville. Like, I would have loved that. That would have been amazing.
Yeah. I just want something like that to exist these days. Like, I feel like the closest we've gotten is like the Chris Gethard show is like
Yeah.
the closest I feel like we've gotten something to that Roddy Piper nonsense.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's something. It seems like everyone who was making it was having a ton of fun, even if the final product maybe wasn't that great or polished. It seemed like everyone was having a good time, which I didn't necessarily feel from Little Muppet Monsters, which felt like it was a little thrown together.
I felt like the least fun Frank Oz has ever had was doing some of those Fozzie skits.
Well, I think that means it's about time for our Muppets of the Week. We've talked about them throughout this, but I did want to give a rundown and some more attention to Tug, Molly, and Boo this week. Because we will see these puppets again, and we will definitely see some of these performers again. So Tug will show up as other characters, such as the Do-Re-Mi monster in Muppet Time, a series of Nickelodeon interstitials. And all these puppets will show up in Mop Top Shop because that seems to be the dumping ground for most puppets. He will also appear briefly in the introduction to the Muppets at Walt Disney World, where he mauls Michael Eisner.
Oh, wow. Good for him.
Yeah. And Tug is obviously, as we've mentioned, performed by Richard Hunt, the performer behind, Junior Gorg, Scooter, Janice, Beaker, Sweetums, many, many other Muppets. Boo, Monster. I guess I didn't mention, these three are siblings, I guess.
I don't think Molly is their sibling.
I think she
Molly
is.
Tug calls her.
I don't think
Tug
so.
calls her his sister at one point.
He does?
Yeah,
because I thought-
I thought the
she
same
calls
thing.
Boo Tug's brother at one point.
Well, she's not wrong.
It's very
but-
weird that
Yeah, it's not.
I mean, yeah.
It was because I thought I had the same thought of like, are they related? Okay, those two are definitely related, but what about Molly? And then like he drops the sister line, and it's the only reason I even registered with me.
much like the poodle thing where they like crash into something and make a mess and don't say what it is. It's like, did no one read these scripts and go, hey, how are these three like related at all? Should we mention it? Maybe. It's very bizarre that like you get so many little references and hints to like them being related, but no clear line of like, oh, well, you're the youngest of us. I'm the middleest kid and I'm the oldest. So it's like they don't lay it out as clearly as that. And they really should. But yeah, Boo seems to be the youngest child. And the next time we'll see Boo is maybe, we'll see him a few times, but the next time might be at Jim Henson's memorial, where David Rudman is performing him during one of the songs. But he will also show up a handful of times on The Cosby Show, Good Morning America, and he will appear in the 1992 Muppet meeting film Think Bigger, where he plays a character called Flunky, who we would have obviously seen because we talked about those, but
Yeah.
I don't remember that at all.
I kind of remember the name Flunky being said, maybe, but yeah.
And the third is Molly, who, also goes on a couple of times to show up on Muppet Top Shop in the celebration of 30 years. But beyond that, Molly is left in the dustbin a bit more than the other two. But didn't mention Boo is performed by David Rudman, who notably, before this, had helped out on some Muppet things. He was an intern for the Muppets in 1981 after graduating from high school, and he built some puppets. But during college, he auditioned to be a performer and got hired while he was in college. But Jim was like, hey, actually, finish college. We'll work with you when you're done. Don't worry about it. And once he graduated, guess what time it was? It was Little Muppet Monster time. So he gets his first big starring role as Boo Monster. And now he is the man behind Cookie Monster, Scooter, Janice, Beaker, and Baby Bear. So yeah, David Rudman is out there doing it. He is one of the main Muppet performers these days. And the performer behind Molly is Camille Bonora, sometimes credited as Camille Camporis. She has an interesting trajectory if you look through her life. She worked on Sesame Street for like 10 years and in various Muppet projects over the years. And then, in her words, I watched part of an interview with her from the Forum of Christian Leaders. She felt pulled to move away from this wing of entertainment and thought it was her mission to evangelize more. So she co-wrote and performed the character Eddie in a Christian home video series called Ben and Eddie, which is a Christian puppet show, and then went on to be more behind the scenes in production and like Christian home movie stuff. So yeah, there's a fascinating interview with her that like you don't need to go and watch, but there's parts where she basically says that like the Muppets were a godless bunch. I was the only Christian around back then, which was interesting to hear her talk about a bit. But yeah, outside of those three characters and what we just said about them throughout this episode, there's not much more to know. Obviously, they don't go on to long lives as classic Muppet characters. Everyone knows Boo Monster. So I will just put it out there. If you two had to give these little Muppet Monsters a rating out of 5 stars, what would you rate them as a trio?
I mean, I don't want to be cruel and give them like a bottom tier 1, but they're just so forgettable. They're so like they have no personalities. Like I wish if it was like literally anything that you could pull out of it aside from the fact that like, boy, they sure are performed by talented people. I mean, I guess I give it like a 1.5. I give them a half a star because maybe like the puppet designs aren't too terrible, but yeah, it's just if there's nothing salvageable. If there was one salvageable thing, then it'd be like, oh yeah, I wish we had a little bit of that in the Muppets today. But no, I'm good. Hard pass.
You made some good points. I can't give any Muppet 1 star, though.
You have multiple times in the past.
Oh, okay. Then I give them 1.5 stars, too.
Yeah, I agree with most of the things you said there. I think Tug's design is pretty good. I don't like Boo and Molly look pretty background Muppety to me. Molly.
Actually, I'm gonna give him a 2 because Tug's singing the Gunko song. He's starting to develop like a Daffy Duck flavor to him that I really appreciate. So
Yeah, I feel like Richard Hunt was having a lot of fun doing this show. And I think that comes through in Tug. I think just Boo and Molly aren't necessarily ready for primetime players as characters. And I think Molly looks a bit like if Eureka from Eureka's Castle was turned into a monster.
That's true.
So I'll go with 2 stars as well. Maybe I'll give him 2 just because I do like Tug and Richard Hunt's performance so much.
Yeah.
Well, before we get out of here, I want to check in and see if you guys had time to enjoy any non-Muppet things this week. How about you, Joe?
Oh my goodness, yes, always. So I have a Substack that I try my best to upkeep every week of all. I do reviews of all the movies and TV shows I watch because I watch a lot of movies and TV shows in my day to day. If anyone, by the way, wants to subscribe, it is completely free. It's just a place for me to throw some non-Muppety thoughts out there. It is Joe Consumes Media. You can just do a search for that, all one word, I assume, on Substack. You could find me there. But this week, just yesterday I went to see The Boy and the Heron, the new Miyazaki film, which I'm not usually an anime fan, but it just looked good, and I assumed it would get nominated for Best Animated Feature. I go see the Best Animated Features every year. So I went ahead and saw it ahead of time for that. But that was much better than I was expecting, actually. I was expecting to be like, well, I can see why people would like it, but it's not for me. But I actually enjoyed it very much. I thought it was pretty fun and pretty clever. Before that, I went to see... Oh, what did I see the other day? I'm forgetting already. American Fiction, which is the new movie with Jeffrey Wright, where he's a writer and he wants to... he writes a stereotypical, black author story that takes off, despite the fact that it does not appreciate that, but he has to pretend to be this guy because there's a lot of money and stuff being passed around. It was really smart. It was really interesting. It was a very different kind of story that I've ever seen. It was really funny when it wanted to be funny. I highly recommend it. And before that, I gotta tell this very brief story. So a friend of mine and I heard that a local theater was doing spend $5 on a ticket and you get to see a mystery film. And we didn't know what it was going to be. All we knew about it was a movie that's not out yet. It's rated PG-13, and we knew the length of the movie. And we were like, what could it be? And I had convinced myself, because it fit all those categories, that we were seeing Aquaman, the new Aquaman movie. And I was like, great, let's see this supposedly terrible movie. And I was really jazzed about it. And then the movie starts, and it's not Aquaman. It's a movie called The Boys in the Boat, which is a George Clooney. Oh yeah, George Clooney directed about the crew team, like the rowing team that went to the 1936 Olympics, and boy, it was one of the worst movies I have ever seen in my life. It was quite bad for a lot of different reasons. I won't really get into it, but like already from the get-go, I'm not a sports movie guy, so like. It was not, I knew I wasn't going to like it from the beginning, but just the way the movie is made, the fact that like George Clooney hired a bunch of like 35-year-old guys to play 19-year-old, freshman, sophomore students who all looked the same. So I couldn't remember who was who. And then there's like literally 2 speaking female roles in the whole movie. And both of them are just like, I'm just here to support my guy, and I'll get out of your way so you can go do the important job of rowing a boat. And and there's a scene where they go to the Olympics and they're doing the big parade. They're about to parade in front of Hitler, and they're in the group with Jesse Owens, and they're like, "Oh, aren't you Jesse Owens?" And they have like a quick exchange, and I'm going, "Why aren't we following that guy? He's so much more interesting than these guys who rowed a boat." It was so bland and bad, and such an obvious award show grab that it will get nominated for 0 awards because already the press for this movie is terrible. So anyway, I highly recommend avoiding that one, but go see the other 2 that I saw this week.
Damn, I would have been so pumped to see Aquaman too.
I know, right?
It looks fun. It looks fun.
Sure.
I think I liked the first one.
I'm going to see it
And I
next
think that
weekend.
guy-
I'm very excited, and I
Yeah.
can't get anyone to come with me. I'm going to go see it by myself.
Well, I'll come see it.
Fly
with
out
Okay,
to New
thank
York,
you.
Sam.
Yeah,
Yeah, come on. Yeah,
be
I'll buy
in
your
LA,
ticket if you
so
come out.
It's a bit of a trip, but I think I'm gonna go see it also. I think that guy's a great Aquaman. I can't remember his name right now.
Yeah, Jason
I think
Momoa.
He's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's perfect. I also saw Boy and the Heron, and I wish that I had read more about it before I saw it. Because at the end, I was like, I don't really get what that was all about. But then when I read it was like Miyazaki retired, and then he was like, I can't retire. So then he made this movie about how the only thing left of you is your work after you die. And then just like seeing those connections and seeing like, oh, that's why that was this reference to this movie, and that's why there is this reference to this movie. I was like, okay, I wish I had watched it with that lens. Like, I wish he'd come on at the beginning and said, this movie's about me. I'm dying soon, and I needed to make another movie. I would have been like, okay, I get it. And also like not like, I guess maybe the sub theme was like not forcing other people to like, I don't know, like carry on your work or something like that. Not expecting people to remember you at the same time. I thought it looked beautiful, but I just like, I didn't really like connect with it. It felt like a plot that was just like, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened, in a way that I don't feel like his movies usually do. They don't feel like that to me. Where like Kiki's Delivery Service or like, what's the one, Spirited Away? Those have both like a thing you could say, this is what this movie's about. I feel like The Boy and the Heron, it would be really hard to say, oh, hey, Matt, I saw this movie. It's about a boy who meets a heron, but it's not really a heron. It's kind of like a little goblin. And then he goes on an adventure, and it's like a stream of consciousness movie, which is totally the point of the movie. But when I got out of it, I was like, I kind of like a little bit more story in my thing. But it looked great, and I'd love to see it again now that I understand more about it, because everybody seems to love it so much. But I just didn't really like come out of it totally blown away.
Well, unlike Joe, I am a sports movie guy. And so aside
And
from
you love the boys in the boat.
I did not see Boys in the Boat.
You got to see it.
There was a trailer for it before Boy and the Heron, and there's like a line where they're like, we're going to show them what's in this boat. And then one of the people I was with leaned over and said, boys.
Yeah, it's a spoiler. It's in the title.
can see 'em.
Oh my god! Can I
Yeah.
tell
You
you?
can see 'em
there's
right there,
there's like
sticking out the
several
top.
lines in that movie that are exactly like that. That are just like, it's like we're gonna do that stereotypical thing, and then they say the thing, and you're like, you don't know anything about subtext. Like,
Oh, boy.
I'm sorry to get back to this, but like the final line in the movie, which I'm not going to reveal here for anyone who wants to see it, but the final line of the movie was that kind of corny that in the theater that I saw it with, all these people who paid $5 for their tickets and had nothing to complain about, everyone burst into laughter. It was
Oh, no.
very sad for George
not
Clooney,
The boys in
Oh,
the boat.
no.
but it was a very fun movie-going moment for me. And that's all I care about. Sorry,
I
George.
hope he wasn't there.
We were kind of wondering, like, was he backstage? He was gonna be like, "Hey guys, I'm here." We all would have been like, "Oh, standing ovation." And he's like, "Maybe I shouldn't go out there. They really hated my movie."
Oh no.
Oh, well, I, on top of my normal weekly Monarch and For All Mankind watching that I do, I started to check out a movie this week that's a 3-hour movie from 1966 about Formula One. And it's called Grand Prix. And it features James Garner, Eva Marie Saint, Toshiro Mifune, which was the biggest surprise, famous Kurosawa samurai actor, and Jessica Walter from Arrested Development, back in her, she's the hot babe in the movie. It's very interesting. It's one of the most 60s movies I've ever watched. Lots of split screen, super fast edits. We're going to show the same crash happening 8 times on the screen right now. Like, it's made by the same guy who made The Manchurian Candidate and a lot of other things back then. But it's a 3-hour movie. That's a big ask. But I think it's interesting beyond just the racing stuff, which there is a lot of racing stuff. But it's more about the drivers and their relationships with each other and their spouses and the danger of driving at that time where, so they got a bunch of the Formula One drivers that were really driving around that time to be extras in the movie and do a lot of the driving. Within 10 years of that movie coming out, 10 of them had died in various accidents. So back then, Formula One, much more dangerous sport than it is today. So this is a lot about that, of like these drivers are putting their lives on the line every time they go out there. And it's one of those movies too, where you look at it and you're like, I don't know how you made this, because they have cameras on the cars filming at full speed while these cars are driving 180 miles per hour around a racetrack. And I'm like, you didn't have GoPros. Like, you have a massive film camera strapped to this car that's driving 180 miles per hour, and they have the actors, most of them, doing their actual driving. So, like, James Garner is driving a race car. And so
they just have like one really fast running guy with a steady cam next to the next to the car.
It's just a fascinating piece of like filmmaking. If you're already interested in Formula One, it's more fascinating, obviously, because it's really like an insight into that era of Formula One that it doesn't really exist in any sort of other way. They didn't like, and this was, a big 60s movie filmed in CinemaScope, so it looks beautiful. And the fact that they are like filming actual races from like cameras next to the cars and on the cars is amazing. And so, yeah, I would say that's a very specific kind of film. If you're into 60s cinema, if you're into Formula One, if you just want to see Toshiro Mifune in color, you can go watch that movie. Well, before we go, we want to let you know what we'll be watching next time. And next time, we'll be diving back into the world of Muppet Babies with Season 2, as we watch the 3 episodes that aired alongside the 3 episodes of Little Muppet Monsters that aired. So those will be the episodes Once Upon an Egg Timer, Piggy's Hyperactivity Book, and Fozzie's Last Laugh.
I don't want to go back, Matt.
But we do have to give a huge thanks to Joe Hennes for joining us on this Little Muppet Monster journey. We mentioned your Substack, but is there anywhere else, aside from obviously toughpigs.com, that you'd like people to follow you, or if you want them something specific you want them to check out?
No, I have taken advantage of the fact that social media is the Wild West once again these days, and really taken myself off the radar for the most part, which has been great for my mental health. But I am still very much active on Tough Pigs social media, literally everywhere where you get social media, just at Tough Pigs. We're on Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, Tumblr, Blue Sky, Threads. That's another one. We just registered the name everywhere we could. So yes, if you want to hear more Muppet stuff, just find us at Tough Pigs on whatever social media channel that you prefer. We'll be there waiting for you.
And everyone should go watch a video I edited for Tough Pigs about it's a sequel to a famous Brian Henson intros video Joe did forever ago. That I went with an idea I had, and Joe said, "Absolutely, why not? Let's do that." And thank you, Joe, for letting me be real weird with that edit.
Oh my God, Matt, thank you. And thank you for bringing this up, because I meant to, and I'm glad you did before. I was going to like an hour from now, would be like, oh shit, we were going to talk about that thing. So first of all, okay, so like it's over 15 years ago now, but 15 years prior to this video, like we had shot this silly little high-end Brian Henson video, and like Muppet fans still find it and will like message me, quote it to me in person, whatever, which is bonkers to me, because it was just a stupid thing that we did in my apartment. And we'd made the decision for whatever reason to do another one, and we filmed it, and we just sat on it because I am not a video editor. It is not my favorite thing to do. And Matt, when you volunteered to edit it for us, it was like, oh my God, a real editor could do more than just like putting clips in order, which is all I would have done. And you gave it such a great vibe to it with the choices that you made, that like it really elevated the whole thing, which is saying something, because it was already, just such highbrow humor. I don't know how you could have elevated it beyond what we already recorded. No, you did an amazing job with that, and I'm so very, very grateful to you. And I am kind of chomping at the bit for us to collaborate again. So we're gonna have to figure it out.
Oh, I'm sure we will.
Yeah.
But yeah, go look for more Lost Brian Henson intros on YouTube on the Tough Pigs channel, and you'll find that one. And then you'll be like, what the hell are you guys doing over there?
Maybe watch the Brian Henson intros and go, what the hell is this? And then you can watch the more Brian Henson, see how poorly I aged. And then,
Well, we thank you again, Joe, for coming on the podcast. And we thank our friend Tuna for making the music for this show and Cassie Wilson for singing our theme song. Don't forget to go to commitment.com to check out everything we do, buy some merch, see our faces, send us an email. You can do that also at mail@commitment.com. You can follow this podcast everywhere on social media at CommitmentPod, and you can follow me at Matthew Gatos.
And I'm Sam Schultz.
And as always, keep believing.
Keep pretending.